Hello and welcome to episode 247 of the FReality Podcast. Hey, here we are back again on the casting couch. I'm carrying some next-gen tech plague, and our team here are here to catch up with one another on the peripheral edge of immersive technology, and we're going to bring you along for the ride. Here's what we have on today. China's paving the way towards a living world Minority Report. Big screen has gone pay to win. Brain control earbuds are in the plans from Apple. We recount just how much Zim loathes April Fool's Day. And Adam's going to review XReal Airs 2. After all that, Jose is on top of releases with some compressed air cans and a vuvuzela to trumpet the passing of another peanut butter-packed episode. If you don't know us, we've got Zim playing the part of April O'Neil for Channel 5 News. Rowdy's taking on the role of Emmett Lathrop Brown, PhD. Adam's our Carmen Sandiego, Globetrotter. And Jose, our very own Alan Sugar, who's got the offer and who's fired in the business world of VR. Right, so, highlights time from the squad. Let me pass the baton to Rowdy and let's get this lad's premium pancake flipped already. How you doing, Rowdy?
I've been well. My week has not been too exciting, except for that for some reason, I think someone suggested it to me, and I don't know if any of you have ever played this game as well, but like a while ago, I played Stardew Valley quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
And I recently, I think it was someone shared a video who also played the game, and I was like, I've never even seen this section, because I thought like I had like, I don't know, played like maybe 50 hours or something, which I think is a decent amount for a game anyway, and I felt like I kind of had seen what the game had to offer, and I just saw stuff that I've never seen before, so I was like, where is this stuff even? So I went and dug a little bit deeper, and I think I haven't even done like 10% of the game yet. There is so much more stuff in there. And yeah, that kind of got me hooked a little bit again. I've been playing it again. Do any of you guys have the Steam Deck? I kind of forgot. I think Jose had one.
Two.
You have two?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'll take one.
The Steam Deck is perfect for that kind of game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I was even thinking like, oh man, the
It's number
Steam
one.
Deck. Yeah, probably.
Stardew Valley is number one at the moment on the charts, like beating things like Elden Ring, Vampire Survivors. You know, there's other games that Steam Deck is fantastic for. It's just the hand in a glove fit.
So
Stardew is up there.
Indeed. So I went a little bit like digging deeper, because I was like, what is actually the history of this game? You know, like on which platforms has it all been released? Because indeed you do see it everywhere, and on my YouTube feed, there's so many stuff. And it's one of the few games, since I was traveling, it's one of the few games that you do have on Mac OS, and you can play on Steam Mac OS. So they have it there, but they also have it in the Mac Arcade store. So if you have like an Apple subscription, then you can download it there as well. So it's on two different platforms on the Mac itself. Then it's on iOS. You can download it on your iPhone. So you have it on there as well. It's one of the top selling games there as well. It's on Steam, of course. So that's how most people play it. It's on Switch. You have it on the Steam Deck, so it's optimized for the Linux platform as well. I'm pretty sure that it probably works for Linux as well. But it's on pretty much every platform that can handle gaming in some kind of way or format that can do this. And I was a little bit blown away with that, because I knew it was popular, but I didn't know it's probably one of the best-selling games out there made by an indie dev studio. So I went to look into the indie dev studio, and this game was, for the majority, made by a single guy. Who just worked on this game like 14 hours a day straight for like a couple of years. And then he did all of the music, he did all of the art style, he did the quest design, the game mechanics, the entire system behind there, which I think is incredibly well done. It's super addictive in a good way. You don't feel bad after spending 6 hours of farming. You feel like you've accomplished something.
6 hours.
One more day.
Yeah, exactly.
To those of you who grew up on a farm, Rowdy throws no shade on your lives and livelihood. But yeah,
Hell no.
virtual farming, I'm sure, is a good way to spend your life.
Yeah, because like you have like farming simulator, you know, like I have friends
I know.
actually who play that game, and I look at that game and I just feel like you're just going around in a plow the entire day. Like, you know, what do you find fun about this? Well, it's relaxing, and I get that. You know, I get, yeah, that is relaxing. But with Stardew Valley, I feel like because you're part of that little community, you can play it with other people as well, so that makes it a lot more fun. But yeah, like if you're looking for a game to feel good, to spend some time, to dream away a little bit, because the game starts like that, right? You know, you're working in a 9 to 5 dead end job. Everyone there is miserable, and you inherit a farm from your grandfather, and that way you get some time away from like the corporate life. And I think that rings true with a lot of people, which I think is very very well done.
Have you played that? So I hadn't mentioned this because I bet there's a lot of hardcore Stardew Valley fans listening, and I actually don't play Stardew Valley a lot, but I know so many people around me that, like, even my coworkers, it's all they talk about. Have you heard of Stardew Valley Expanded?
Yeah, the 1.6 one, right?
So Stardew Valley Expanded, it is a mod
that
was created by hardcore community, which they built a design language for the game. So now there's a lot of like add-ons that are being built for the game. So they actually brought out like these like tractors. You can like customize your horses. Like my COO Laura, like she's obsessed with that game, and she has like different hats for each animal, and that game has so many layers. It's a game within a game. They actually have different mini games. Like they have emulators for classic games that are being built into this game.
Wow.
So it's,
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Stardew Valley, right, is another massive indie success.
It's
similar
insane.
kind of idea was like Project Zomboid, for example, or take the indisputable Minecraft. But like when you have a single dev or just an indie dev studio, and they put a world together. It doesn't have to be high fidelity. It just has to have the right elements to convince you enough in your brain that you're living that other life. It can really separate you from the stresses of day-to-day real world living. And I absolutely love that. I love that you can take, like, someone can do a J.R.R. Tolkien in games. And that's happened so many times over now. But it's really great when you have that common fabric, because a game, like you said, Rowdy, like that first intro to Stardew Valley that you experience, it's got a really somber note to it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think it's the perfect introduction. Like, you do feel like you just got out of a stressful job and you've moved out to the country, and like you don't know what's going on. You're unfamiliar with the community, all that. And I think a lot of us have felt that before. So
and
when
the
you capture
simpleness
that
of
feeling,
it, right? Like, you just plant a seed, you water it every day, and you get something. Like that kind of reward system. I mean, in real life, that works for me very well as well. Because buying a tomato from a shop or growing a tomato yourself, for some reason, your brain is gonna think it tastes better because it's something you put your effort into, and that reward mechanic works really well in this game as well, I think. Even though you don't really eat the tomatoes.
That's beautiful.
You sell them for pure profit.
Very close to home. Very, very close to home for me, because my wife is currently trying to code a game that is like Stardew Valley, but
right.
Didn't she like about it?
Because I think we talked about this a while back as well. There was this Quebec fishing game that she liked as well. Which one was it again?
Game. Oh,
it's a fishing game that is set in Canadian Quebec, and then like it's like where you need to go fishing and you cook fish and you upgrade your boat and stuff like that.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. It's a sprite-based game. It was mobile, and then you go deeper the more fish you get.
No. It's very Stardew Valley like, because you can upgrade your boat and you can contribute to the community.
Diver?
Sorry?
Dave the Diver, is not that one?
No.
There's a similar game like that. It's pretty.
I thought it was set in Quebec, because that's why we talked about it. Yeah.
That we spend 2 weeks apart. We come together, and I feel like we planned the script. Like, Dave the Diver has been taking time from me, so Jose, I will get to that a bit later. All right. So, Rowdy, great highlight. Thanks very much. Don't worry, everybody. We do have VR stuff in today's show, but there's I also have a lot of heart for indie. I really, really do. It's what made VR special in the end. So, next up, it's Adam, straight out of Vault 33.
I feel bad because my highlights also not like really VR related. It's more real life stuff. I mean,
The state of
stuff
VR.
is
No.
it'll come by later. Don't worry. But I've actually this happened before this podcast and before the GDC one. But I've actually been learning how to swim. I am an adult that never learned how to swim, and but I love water related activities, and you've seen my kayaking videos.
Right.
I've taken a lot of risks, doing stuff like this. But
So currently what you're doing is trying not to drown instead of swimming.
that's bare minimum. I don't need to be like Olympic level or water polo. I just want to not die. Like, I don't need, you know what I mean?
Sorry, part of my brain is going, this is one bad Hawaiian here. Like,
Well, I think it's because, so I asked my mom, I was like, why didn't you make, because I was born in California. She and like my millions of aunts were born in Hawaii. So I was like, why didn't you ever take me? And I guess she said, oh, you just said you didn't want to. And I'm like, but you need to make a kid. Like, kids are going to say that, you should have made me. I think for her, because she just grew up in Hawaii, like, all her sisters and brothers just, you kind of went to the beach, you got pushed in. They didn't, you didn't have to learn because you're just surrounded, literally. But for me, like, I don't know. California beaches, well, where I am in my area, like Southern California beaches aren't that great. Like LA, I get a lot of kelp, and I didn't have access to like a pool, but I've always loved being around the water. And now as an adult though, and now that I have learned a bit more of how to swim, I'm like, oh man, all of those fun like stuff that I've missed out of. So it's kind of a bummer, but I'm glad that I'm doing it now. So because every time I go out on the water, I'm like, man, I'm putting myself and like my husband and anyone else at me or with me at risk in case something does happen.
Yeah.
And then it's also just like, why was I so afraid? Like, I think maybe as an adult helped a little bit more because that first lesson, I had so much anxiety. I didn't want to eat. I was just like, oh God, like it's happening today. I'm going to have to put my head in the water. I know that sounds like a baby, but like that was kind of a big thing for me. But as an adult, when I finally just stood in that pool, I'm like, you just have to do it. You're paying money for this. Get your money's worth out of it. Like get some. So
Start
I finally
drowning.
did it. Yeah. No, you have to do that, but so yeah, I had to get over that initial fear barrier, and then once I did, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I can see the appeal now. 32 years later.
no, good on you. That's
better late than never.
I think it's really smart. I think it's also a really adult thing to confront a really core fear. I mean, the fear of choking, the fear of drowning. Like, there's even putting something in your eye. Like people who wear contacts, I still don't understand. I don't think I could do it. I would be such a baby. So yeah, good job. I've been kind of following your Twitter. I caught it. I don't know, a tweet 5 or 6 in the thread, and I was like, yeah, good on you, Adam. That's a good thing to do. Do you have like a favorite stroke or something that you're learning at the moment? Something that you really got the knock of now?
Really like how it's structured right now. So we're just like putting together bits and pieces of the freestyle. So now, I mean, I can tread water, but we're sort of first like people focus on kicks, and then like being able to roll and floats, and then being able to roll from like my back to stomach. But now we're working on swimming, from on my stomach to the side. So that's when you breathe in the freestyle, and then eventually like slowly we're adding arms. But I found like, man, if you're a professional swimmer, there's so much depths because you're thinking about your legs, you're thinking about breathing, you're thinking about your arms, you're thinking about not dying. It's just so many little moving parts when it comes to swimming that I've got a greater, deeper appreciation for people who do it, like professionally, I guess, or hardcore. But it's fun, and I'm glad that I'm doing it now. So if anyone else is out there like me who's an adult that's like, oh, I don't want to take a swim lesson because I'm too old for that. No, do it. Definitely do it. And the place that I go to, like all the reviews were like for people's children, so I was kind of like super self-conscious. I'm like, oh man, like this is a place for kids. But no,
I would love it if you were like the only adult there.
Yeah.
No, I had to do the private lessons. No, I was going private lessons.
Kid. You can
Like
do this.
screaming.
It's gonna sound so bad, but it would be great if you had like, instead of floaties, you just had 2 5-year-olds, cracking them under.
It's everyone for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
All right, kids.
Your mom paid for this. I paid for this.
That's amazing. What a nice highlight. That's really good. And again, it kind of feels just like Rowdy's. It's like survival, right? It's survival skills, and to some extent, it's an important one. Like if your car ever goes off the road and you're in the water and you can't swim, well, that's your ticket. That's your ticket to heaven, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's a
Um,
big thing. It's like if something happens to me and it could have been avoidable. I mean, obviously, there's different factors involved besides just the swimming. But I'm gonna be so pissed at myself if I died and I could have avoided this. I mean, I guess I'd be dead, so it wouldn't matter. But
Yeah, you don't want
it's
that
like
to be your last
avoidable.
your
Yeah,
last thought to yourself. Is
I'm
like,
just
"Should
mad
I
at
learn how to
myself.
swim?"
Yeah, right. So it makes me
Yeah.
feel a little better now that I'm like, okay, at least I know that if something worst case happens, I know how to swim and I tried my best. Maybe a shark will grab me, maybe the car will pull me under, but that was outside of my, circumstances. I did what I could.
Oh,
now
that's
I'm just
so funny.
realizing how much extra risk all of your like Meta Wayfarer, video clips and stuff, like you kayaking through tunnels of
I
caves
know.
with water, like, and not knowing how to swim. Like, what do you do?
The inner tube one was fine. That one you could
Cataloging your
stand in,
demise.
but
Oh my God,
I know.
that takes
I
some
know.
balls. Good job. Yeah, that's some pretty extreme stuff. All right, whitewater rafting next year. Then there you go, all sorted. Cool. With that, then it's off to Jose to report from spring break in Miami.
Yo. It's hot, really sweaty and humid here in Miami.
Not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah, it's
that hurts.
lots. So unlike you guys, I've been very, very much, knee deep in VR, but not using VR. So a lot of, setting up headsets, provisioning them, customizing them for clients. So a lot of seeing, the meta, how to use a headset video every 4 or 5 minutes, and then HTC's one, and then Pico's one. It's a lot of. I kind of know the whole script by head, but very, very VR focused. But other than that, just paying attention to our state of affairs, paying attention to social media. A lot of people, hammering and blaring the horns of VR is dead, and I'm like, I just set up 65 headsets. What do you mean VR is dead? like what are you talking about? But just soaking in the dead VR world. And
I got a question for you then. So those initial setups for any dev who's dealt with any volume of headsets, like 10 headsets, right? Even for setting up for a show floor or something. I remember one real pain point, and I'm curious what yours would be to highlight. We used to be on the show floor, right? Like, say Oculus Connect, for example, or what was the UK one? Can't remember. And we had to download a 5 gigabyte like Oculus Home install to get any headset working. And so you'd have to do that machine by machine if you were going to set up PC VR booths. And it was a pain in the ass, and especially if you were on localized convention Wi-Fi. So we ended up like going through like 40 gig dongles that were paid however much money, right? And pulling down these packs. It was completely inefficient. What's your biggest pain point for the moment for any of the companies you just mentioned?
Value versus friction, right? I think that there's a value proposition saying, hey, we have an event next week and we need 10 headsets, and they get the headsets there, they turn it on and they're ready to go. Right. So all of those frictions that you talked about, from setting up time, waiting for the updates, setting them up for an activation. A lot of people forget that these are headsets designed for retail. So you have to customize them for, a lot of client work through. A lot of people don't realize too is that these are computers, they are devices. Some of these are carrying games and demos that are worth a lot of shareholder value. Let's think of, for example, Asgard's Wrath, right? A lot of people don't realize that Half-Life 2 leaked before it came out at I think it was an E3 convention. Same thing with Half-Life 1. There's a lot of friction there in value that my company brings in to avoid that entire setup process. So we set up all that beforehand. We have tools that we built in-house to kind of not even deal with that at all. We have Wi-Fi dongles built in. We actually use, if you really want to get more technical on that side, Wi-Fi is a really big issue in conventions. I don't use Wi-Fi. We use a technology called Li-Fi. I'm getting a little bit of the sauce, but Li-Fi is light-based internet. So imagine how wireless signals work and how they communicate for one another. We use different technology in how the headsets communicate. So we use this dongle, and it uses light to transfer the internet to the headset to the endpoint. So that way we can do high-end wireless PC VR, but a convention floor doesn't scare us because their Wi-Fi doesn't interfere with ours. So
Sweet.
those are the little
That's awesome.
kind of the magic sauce there.
So it's just it's an over-the-counter device. This isn't like a custom thing, I imagine. Like,
No,
this
this is
device anyone can purchase,
yeah.
and okay.
Yeah, the technology is called Li-Fi. There's a lot of companies. We work with one called Proton Fi that kind of does the dongle. Works on any Android-based device like a all-in-one XR Elite or Quest 2 or 3, and then another endpoint goes to your router. And I think the output goes to about 300 megabits per second, which is perfect for really good PC VR. And that's kind of bringing in a systems engineer into the role of setting up activations and events.
So what is I got it. This Li-Fi thing is really cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard this. Like the last time I was excited about networking, it was I know I referred to it incorrectly, but it's like those Netgear devices that you plug, like power line devices, where you are modulating the power network to bring data
Using
across
your
the home
lines.
network.
Yep.
Yeah, and provided you're not splitting phases, it works well. But this is like, if it's light based, does that mean it must have like kind of a light antenna
A light
that can
bulb, yep.
see all
So
the way
anything that
around?
the light bulb sees, anything the light touches is yours. So anything that the light literally, so if it sees the light bulb and it has a direct line to that light, you have the internet connection. It's really science fiction-y technology.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, you blow my mind here, Jose. Okay, anyone who didn't know about Li-Fi.
I wish I could have unboxed one and show you guys.
Yeah, well, maybe next podcast, bring one along and we can.
Or if we end up doing an event in a live one of these podcast shows, we'll show that technology in real time. That's kind of what I'm building with Reboot Imagine. Is kind of seeing all those frictions when it comes to activation, setting up devices, kind of putting all of the boring VR is dead infrastructure that the industry will need, and focusing on building that.
Fucking A. I'm a Jose, fantastic. I love it. I love it. It's great. There's always something that comes out of these conversations. Brilliant. Well, chat, I want to thank everyone for being here today. If you have a particular highlight, throw it in chat. We'll call some of those out. Maybe Adam or Jose can keep a look on chat for me. And before we pop into the news, I'm gonna give you my little highlights. So, as a big No Man's Sky fan, they dropped yet another free update, which had it was called the Orbital update. So this is No Man's Sky. I was playing on PSVR 2, but they brought about a complete overhaul of the base space station. So I haven't yet seen a pirate station, and if they made any changes there. But in your base space station, when you land, kind of like Valkyrie back in the day, after you come in through the tunnel, or Elite Dangerous, you come in through the tunnel with your ship, you land in the space station. There were kind of two halves, almost like two hemispheres. So you'd either go off to the right if you needed to, change your ship, change your gear, grab a mission or something, or go off to the left, see the CD guy about, a busted ass ship that's floating out in space that you could go and steal all the goods off of, that type of thing. So it was a little bit cumbersome because you'd come in and then, like, especially if you were a group of people, you're like, where are you? I'm on the left or the right. So they merged all of that into layers, kind of like a strip mall. And the actual stations from the outside themselves look different and have a bunch of different layouts, and it really felt like being back in Elite Dangerous when you first floated up to a station and you were like, oh man, this thing is huge and pretty and it's got all these small details. So if you are a No Man's Sky player, go check that out. I do like the better organization of the kind of shopkeepers inside, but there's a bit of a negative. PSVR 2 anyway, I'm talking to that. I don't know about PC VR. PC VR tends to be worse performance just because of the build, I guess. But PSVR 2 used to be silky smooth, and now after this update, it's got quite a few hiccups.
Oh, no.
Interesting.
So they're gonna have to. The funny thing is, it's like higher resolution. Like everything feels sharp and present. It already felt good. It now feels better. But there's some hiccups. Like I said, there's like a frame stutter maybe every 20 seconds or every 40 seconds. And it's enough to be a pain in the butt. So I'm going to let them work that out. They do great engine work anyway, but No Man's Sky fans, it's worth a dip. And I'm going to say this because, especially with Rowdy and Adam's intro, like, I think I personally need an intervention. I was joking in chat with Mike, Mr. VR Oasis, last night, and I said this. I said, my life is currently 85% Helldivers, 5% Balatro. That's Mike's fault. 5% Dave the Diver. That's Kara Maliki Sanchez's fault. And only about 4% VR right now.
I don't know. I think they're all your fault. You just easily swayed into new games.
I'm easily swayed. But no, I've really been enjoying a lot of that. And I saw, for example, Gamertag revisit like Returnal, but in first person VR.
Right.
I think there's a lot of in the VR space. Like it depends. We were talking about this last podcast, but there's like different tiers of immersion, and it's weird. I'm becoming more Jose-esque in my palette for VR. Like I'm totally cool just sitting there with a flat game on a massive screen. But then it's funny because the battery will hit, it'll drop out, and I'm blind for a couple of seconds. And I'm like, no, don't take me away from my sweet, sweet immersion. Now I got to play on a flat screen that's got
Oh no.
reflections from the lights behind me and the microphone that's in the way and all this kind of stuff. So it's really cool being in VR. But
If you start
I do
playing
feel-
Stardew Valley on a big screen, you can blame me for
Yeah, I was gonna say
Dude, that's the way to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, any of those indie games are amazing on a big screen. And Jose definitely with I think it was Sea of the Stars, or Sea of Stars.
Yeah, Sea of Stars.
Sea of Stars, which when you told me about it, I mean, immediately my Chrono Trigger loving
Yes.
brain was like, you must play this game. So I started, and that's how I played it. I used a Quest, and I used the Xbox Game Services streaming to just go and play it in a massive TV in front of me, and it was like, this is how I should be gaming. Because the nice thing about that is I can see my drink, I can see my wife, like I could just sit there and just chill out, but not feel disconnected. And I think that's something that for people who have been in VR for a while, until we got pass through on headsets, it was a little isolating. We might not have. I didn't recognize it as much, but it cut you out from real life. So I like that anyway. And so yeah, take away my streamer status, revoke my VR license if you like, as March was not a good month for VR productivity for Mr. Zim. But you know what? That's okay because I've got my GT7 Sunday race coming up tomorrow. My monthly race. I've again got like full grid of 16 players. And for those who haven't experienced Gran Turismo 7 in PSVR 2 or can't afford that whole setup, man, it is that feeling you had when I think every arcade wants you to feel. You've got like Cruis'n USA or I don't know, Mario Kart or something side by sides where they got like 4 players and you're all together and you're like, wow, I can play with the other people, I can race with them. Great. That's not much better than GoldenEye on the couch with 4 people, but right now, get a PSVR 2 headset, GT7, and 16 real people around the world, like all connected. Man, that is end state, dream state, incredible, and it's unequivocally the peak of VR right now for me. It's really amazing. So I hope we get more of that, and I think we've got some this episode that we're going to talk about. That's very much on the horizon. So that was my update. And with that, was there anything in chat? Doesn't look like it. We're good. Okay. On to VR news. So, you might judge by the title of the podcast being FReality, how much we like IRL. But I did want to shout something that's been rippling through the news these past few days. It's earthquakes. So both Taiwan and the US have had some news tremoring through, and I wanted to reflect on both of those. Notably because MRTV's host, Sebastian Ang, was off in Taiwan and was thrown from his bed in the night when the quakes hit there. So Rowdy's going to show off a picture that Seb shared, which is pretty freaking dramatic. To be in a hotel and have it be in this poor state. It was a 7.4 magnitude quake. Buildings have literally toppled. So it's a biggie, and we are glad that, Seb, you're okay. All right, so that's just what I wanted to say. There's a few other videos showing the ripple of the events that have been taking place, but it's a bit funny. I know this is going to be maybe laughable to a Californian who's always worried about falling into the ocean, but taking a turn toward the news, we can see a local bridge in Taiwan and what the ripple of P-wave energy is doing. The same effect on a pool. I always think that water, when you're talking about force and that effect, is the best way to show. Like if you've got a bassy sub pack or something like that, if you can show it with water, demonstrate it, it's the best way to like visually represent how much energy is going through. So it's scary, honestly, seeing pools get so whipped around and giant beams falling off buildings and stuff. It has killed a number of people, more than 100. So it's a big deal. It's something you might not know about earthquakes. I grew up with them because I grew up in Alaska on the Ring of Fire. There in the kind of Pacific, and so a P wave is like is a compression wave. That's the push pull. It's the first thing to reach you. in it. And normally, like if you're in a building, it'll feel like everything's shifting left and right.
Yeah.
And there's the shear wave, which is more damaging, that usually comes later, which is vertically, right up and
Yeah.
down. And so buildings get to, you get floors split, roads come up off of the ground, giant holes open up, and those are the ones that are even more dangerous. But when you feel yourself getting pushed around, I think it's important. If you aren't familiar with earthquakes, I know we're talking VR, but this is something that I think is an interesting thing just to be aware of. If you're caught, get under a door frame, under a table, right? Things that fall on you is a good way to die when earthquakes hit. So
And that's
second
one
you're
of the
feeling that,
reasons. That's one of the
duck.
reasons why
Cover.
people do like entire PhDs on just studying concrete, right? The entire composition of concrete and like the way that they mix concrete and steel together to both fight shearing and those compression forces. It's very complicated, but it's one of the great inventions from humanity, right? The ability to withstand these kind of forces. Not always, of course, but like for a lot of these kind of buildings that we see, they're constructed in specific ways to handle these kind of forces.
That's why you have building
Crazy.
standards,
Yeah.
which then save lives. And I like the evolution of those building standards. I saw a really cool episode, I think it was on CNN or something, where it was one of the towers in Taiwan that had an internal pendulum to help absorb the shock and actually minify the damage to the structure. But it's kind of crazy when you think about it, that you're like, oh, 100 years ago, I would have just built a series of stacked concrete slabs, and that thing would topple and kill everybody inside like the worst Oreo sandwich ever. But in today's world, you have this modern building that, as you say, built with modern materials in a structure, and I'm very glad we have that. Interesting to see it though ripple. In contrast, right? We also had the U.S. They had a much smaller Richter scale quake at 4.8. You can see the destruction from that was no laughing matter. Thank you, Rowdy, for showing that. A few broken vases and stuff, but nothing to write home about.
Yeah, it is interesting though, because I was looking at, from California, and they had like a 4 point something, and I'm watching people like, oh my God, is that an earthquake? And I'm like, yeah, it's only a 4 point, I forget what it was, 4 point something though. It's not that.
4.8.
The best way I could describe, I guess, an earthquake for people who haven't felt one, it's kind of like if a big semi truck rolled
Hits the
down your
building.
street and it
Yeah.
didn't, but it doesn't stop. Because sometimes I'll think that I'll be like, oh, it's a semi truck coming down our street again, and then I'm like, oh no, wait, it's not stopping. Oh, I guess it's an earthquake. But most of the time, I feel like
I've had a
Californians
Yeah.
we don't feel, we're not as sensitive to them anymore. Like the
I've-
lower, like the 3 point,
I've had
Yeah,
it
the 3
once
points.
in Turkey. I forgot the magnitude of it, but it was like enough to like to shake me like out of the bed. Like it was enough of that, and I thought personally that like a truck or something had hit the building. That's kind of how
That's
it
what it
like
feels
you know
like,
like
yeah.
It's like a jolt.
When I was in Alaska, it was like what was that? Was it 5.8 or something? I was on the second floor of our home, and it's the only time in my life. Like I'm an agnostic guy, not a religious guy, right? But it's the only time you kind of feel like you were touched by God to an extent, because I felt like he picked up my snow globe and shook it, like the whole world,
Helpless.
like
There's like nothing you can do to stop it, and that's
Like-
like a very terrifying
it's
feeling.
it is. It is. It's actually not too far from that feeling of drowning. It's like I am an ant. I can't do anything. All you can do is protect yourself from stuff that's going to fall on your head or get away from a building, or like there's very little you can do in the moment. But anyway, yeah. So as the world is trying to shake itself apart, we will be here to report on it.
Yay!
I'm trying to just unsettle you first before I give you the good news. Here's the good
Oh,
news.
boy.
So, Minority Report showed us. Sorry, the good news. Minority Report showed us a world with ads all over the place. Walk into a shop and bam, right there in your vision, you're confronted with a bunch of noisy, colorful ads. Well, Chinese corporation Tencent, who you might know from recent VR acquisitions, they're headquartered in Shenzhen and focused on internet-based technology. They've announced a spiffy new offering, being able to spackle in ads into your favorite movie or TV series. Gone with the Wind? How about an anti-flatulence pill? The Matrix? Advanced math classes at your local university. You get the picture. Using digital stitching, ads might flow right into places you never saw them before and right into the content. So what's showing at the moment is, for example, advertisements in a real building and that are featured in the movie, instead of an advertisement for Coca-Cola, all of a sudden it's an advertisement for a MetaQuest 3, that shows up on the wall. So the reason I'm showing this is a few years ago, we had been worried about, let's say, Facebook taking over and acquiring Oculus, and then us all seeing in-game ads. Now they trialed that and had to quickly backpedal based upon the way players kicked back. But this is kind of showing that on the other side of the planet, it's coming. Now, it's funny because just last year, there was a partnership announcement between Chinese mega corporation Tencent and Group M and Dentsu. I hadn't heard of them before, but I'm just going to call out a couple of quotes just to give them their kind of perspective. This is from last year, and this seems to be the egg that they've been cooking in the oven for the last year. China has always been a pioneer in digital marketing, revolutionizing traditional media investment tactics and introducing new ideas to global markets, said Andrew Meaden, Group M's global head of investment. One more quote. Consumers demand quality choices in today's digitally savvy market, and Dentsu's strategic partnership with Tencent teams together leveraging innovations, resources, and our leading business positions to help brands predict, plan, and move forward for what's next, said Derek Wong, the chief executive officer at Dentsu China. So I'll just say, before I give you my thoughts on all of this, I'm curious, are you guys okay with, or are you scared of the coming adverts that may now imbue themselves into our media, into our games, all of that?
I mean, there's always a level of concern, right, when it comes with advertisements. Not because of if it's Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but I'm thinking more if it's like political campaigns, right? If you want to steer a certain election into a certain way, the ones with the most money have the most kind of ads, have the most kind of, exposure into the world. And that happens nowadays as well. It is just going to, I think, be a lot cheaper to make it omnipresent, even if you don't want to see it, right? The danger with that is that those that are or think that they're not influenced by it will actually likely be influenced by it, especially if they don't really have made a preference yet. So that is one thing. The other thing is that I think the technology is really cool. I think this is, how ads probably will work because they're a good ad is often not as present as you think it would be, right? It's like more subliminal and it works subconsciously. The only thing that I'm wondering is how, I understand that copyright in China is different, but in the Western world, often you can't, that's the reason why we, for example, don't see Apple computers, they put this little Pear logo on there or something like that. Apple protects their own brands with specific references in movies and series. But now it's the reverse, right? It's these brands paying this company, I guess, to kind of insert that into movies and series specifically tailored. But the movies and series also hold a certain copyright over their content, right? So I wonder how that works in terms of who gets paid, who gets to decide what content gets placed where. Because like you said, I don't want. I can imagine that the original creators of The Matrix would not want an advertisement for your local university math classes into their specific movie, right? Yeah. So they likely want to have some kind of control over what kind of ads, if any ads, will be allowed on their movie.
That's a very good point, because as well, sometimes people will pay for placement in the created.
Exactly. Yeah. So
created media.
That's how I would imagine it will work.
And you were talking about how sometimes adverts are a bit subversive. They're not so apparent, right? They're not like a banner that's flashing in lights and says buy this thing. For me, for example, and this is a kind of a 20-year story, but remember Men in Black and those kind of sexy looking Ray-Bans that were in Men in Black? That left an impression on young Zim. Yeah. And only years later, when Meta's got their Ray-Ban Wayfarer glasses out, I've been wanting a pair of Ray-Bans for a very long time.
The flip-up phones from The Matrix.
Or the flip-up Nokia,
they became
right?
hugely popular.
And it's funny, though, because, if you asked me, did the advertising product placement in that film in Men in Black like years ago influence my 2023 purchase? It did. It definitely did, because it was that cool factor. Like it's been in my brain for ages, and so they've proven that like if you can slipstream it in, it's way more effective, because it's not seen as this thing over here. It's seen as a cohesive part of the experience. So this concept of like layering on adverts in a space, I just think that where it leads to us next is if we cut all of the old media and threw it out, right? And we just think about new media going forward. As a movie producer, you would want to create safe spaces in your movie for ads to be placed.
That's
right?
what I wanted to bring up. Is it's well, if anything, what we're seeing is the technology catch up to this ideals, but TV shows have been doing this for a very long time. They already make spaces for specific advertisements. One that comes to mind, and I was actually trying to look for it while we were talking about it, but I remember a little bit inside about me, but I there was a brief moment in my life where I was obsessed with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I don't know why, but really into it. And I remember
I know
watching
why,
the
Jose. I
DVD.
know why.
Listen, I ain't answering any, but one of the behind the scenes, I remember one of the DVDs. I remember them showing how they use green screen props for changing the box art depending of the localization or the region.
Oh, cool.
That they were showing it, and I remember the director saying something along the lines of, "Oh, you know, this we did this for localization, but our studios are now looking at this for advertisement." So it ended up becoming like a financial value for the show's budget. And that's what I'm thinking about. If anything, we're just seeing the technology. I feel like this is something like shows, movies have been chasing for a very long time. Even video games, you mentioned glasses, like Hideo Kojima has always been doing partnerships with Oakley's.
Yeah.
And like if you look at Solid Snake, they were using like licensed real items and garments. If anything, what we're seeing is the beginning of a internet for digital products, which is what Rowdy's speaking about. Is there's going to be companies that are going to be releasing, you know, a line of furniture, but they're also going to have digital counterparts. So if a machine computer,
like
a
furniture
TV,
reality,
exactly, a TV, whatever it is, they can just add that data in there and it'll look accurate. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, like, so to some extent, it is interesting. It's very a double-edged sword here. But like, Adam, what's your take on digital ads?
You know what? I feel like it's coming. If we, at least by we, I mean in the States, can figure out the legality of it. Like, if you think about it, people like regular ads are dying. You know, we have ad blockers to skip all that crap. We're buying higher tiered streaming services to skip it. So they're trying to figure out ways of really forcing it onto you, because that's just the nature of the beast. We just hate ads. My worry is that the ones in this particular video looked okay, but I'm skeptical on, can they make everything look natural? Like, will a can have like super weird lighting so it's gonna like stand a lot? And then when Rowdy mentioned the Matrix, I was just thinking like what'd you call it, like a male enhancement pill in one, red pill, blue pill. Like, I don't think it'd go that far, but I don't know. It's just a funny thought that I had in my head.
I'm never gonna see the Matrix in the same light again, Adam. Thank you.
They obfuscate the colors in the hands, like going through the pill or something. Or one pill's like behind the hand.
I'm skeptical on how well it can look, but I think
I think it can work very well.
Eventually.
But I think it will work very well, especially with like lighting, and of course I think these things are gonna get screened. So the way that I see this working is that it's kind of like an overlay that is being placed, right? So there's an overlay that is being placed on something that is present already in the screen itself, or in addition, like for example, a plate that is being placed. But I don't know if you remember what we saw with the Sora model, where they're already integrating specific things into movies and into models like that. Which goes much further, I think, than what this is mainly suggesting, because it's basically just taking a still screen and then placing something or adding something into that still screen, and then doing that for each of the still screens within that frame that is present, so that you get a video format, which I think is very, very possible to do it and make it look very real with the current technology where we basically insert, like with Photoshop or with these kind of like tools that you have where you draw something on there and then use an overlay and say place this on there, and then use the lighting and let AI define the lighting.
To Jose's example, I think localization, regional or personalized advertisement is also very possible in that, and it can be dynamic and it can be layered. The thing that for me that was maybe the most striking is the concept that in a short amount of time, with the AI tools that we've got, at the speed at which they can process, you find yourself walking around with a pass-through set of AR glasses or a VR headset on in your home, and find that things in your environment become something that they're advertising to you. So, for example, the breakfast cereal you're pouring is actually on the box, something that you don't have yet, because it feels that bit more present. It feels like it's already in your life, and it's like easier to sell to you then, So, but I suppose the way I reacted to this news was to some part positive, because one of the biggest concerns that I have as a live broadcaster, say even for this podcast, is no viewer appreciates an advert that interrupts the show, right? No, they don't want it. Like, and even in TV days, you don't want a 30-second ad. You don't want to sit watching Zorbital XYZ broadcast to you while you're waiting to get back to your favorite TV series. The same thing is true for us streamers, right? We appreciate ads not taking up people's time, distracting them from what they have, and if that could be inserted in a more natural way, I see that as a positive take. It's kind of like when the web got addicted to side panel ads, where you're like, I'm reading the main news, but there's like ads on the left and right as curtains. I found that personally a little bit annoying.
I love that you said that,
You know
because that's what I feel where we're at right now. Like, I
That's
feel
where
like
we
we're
are.
in the, I feel like we're in the toolbar era of like AI and human existence, where people are figuring out like, oh, think of all the, like, I feel like, and I remember that vividly, because I remember toolbars. Like, I remember like fixing my parents' computer because it was slow, and then they had like 45 toolbars, and then the web page was like this much screen. I feel like that's what's happening. Is everybody's trying to bring value through AI and through all these tools that they're like just rushing to like.
I completely disagree, and I'll explain why. I mean, not with you, Jose. I think that the intention of making the experience uncomfortable is actually intentional. The reason why there is a 30-second ad in between YouTube videos is because you don't have YouTube Premium. If you don't want the 30-second ads, then you need to pay for YouTube Premium, which means that you don't get the ads. You will still get the side banners. Yeah. There will still, and that's why I said that it comes with a positive and a negative. The positive is indeed that it's going to be, less invasive, it's going to, but it's not going to take away the other ads. The other ads, it's just going to be more ads, and the ads are not going to be embedded into the video, and that's going to be the negative side. So the 30-second ads are going to stay. The side scroller ads are going to stay, because they are specifically there to make the user experience less friendly. That they're not supposed to give.
I want to say friendly. I would say friction over value. It's enough friction for you to be annoyed, but not enough for you to leave the platform.
Exactly, because the content is valuable. So the content is valuable. That's why you're there. But they introduce these kind of things in order to make the user experience less pleasant. And if you want the more pleasant user experience, then you need to pay. That's how all of these things work.
All about money.
Yeah.
What world we live in?
To be fair, they call us users for a reason, right? Yeah. They got to keep us addicted.
Good point. Well, with that, let's talk about some more money-related subjects. I teased at the in the intro that Big Screen has gone free to play. Well, Big Screen is now charging $7 US for environments that were previously free, such as the Residence. Okay, so I actually like the virtual desktop model, where you pay the ticket price up front, and then you get a bunch of scenes or whatever they've decided to deliver after. Big Screen has been a free app for 8 some years now, and now they're having to kind of ratchet themselves backwards. And whilst that seems like a valid strategy to keep the business afloat, from the perspective of a customer, back charging for features that were previously not gated seems like a wrong choice to me, and I think it's going to backfire in their faces.
100%.
It's a bit of a slap in the face. It's kind of like this. I'll give you an analogy from my university days. Say you're running like a poker game for a bunch of friends, and it's always free. People come over, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to do extra, or I want to do more. I want to be able to offer pizza. So I'm going to charge everyone $5 a head. Just changes the dynamic, right? It becomes a different model. And people who have been comfortable with what they had, like all of a sudden feel like you hit them in the face with a fish. So I get it if you're applying that kind of a model to new stuff. And that is partly what they're doing. They've got some new environments that are out. So if you're a big screen fan, you can go look for this. And again, they're not charging a lot. It's a couple of bucks. And you can go ahead and support them heading forward. But it's another financial model, and it is a change, right? But the immediate question here is like, what for me as an end user is, okay, you started down the slippery slope of charging for your features. What other free features are now going to be, right?
Yeah, your trust is kind of
behind the wall. Your trust is
like, why couldn't they have just done new paid only?
Right.
Not you don't go backwards. That's not. I don't know.
I think this is, and this maybe because maybe my perspective because I run a company in VR. I think what's happening is the way that companies build these products, especially software, is that whatever the software makes gets generated into the development of that platform. And I think the big screen platform itself is not generating income, so they don't even have money to make new environments in the first place. So the other way for them to justify some kind of level of cash flow into that to make it justifiable is to disrupt their own business model and try to rebuild it with a new cash flow in mind. The problem with that is, and this is where I'm at, and I'll start because you mentioned virtual desktop, but there's a lot of them like virtual desktop, immersed, big screen, and all of these guys, fluid. I think what's going to happen, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way because I love all the founders of these ideas, is I think a lot of the refrigeration industry, right? I actually was reading a book a few weeks ago about the guy who invented the refrigerator. And this is a really interesting fact about the guy who invented the refrigeration industry. He made no money in the refrigeration industry. But you know what industry made a lot of money because of it? Coca-Cola.
Okay. This is a very interesting tangent. Keep going. So we're talking about refrigerators.
Yes, and there's a reason to follow me here. Yeah, so
keep going.
The refrigeration industry did not make any money until Coca-Cola came into the existence. Immersed, fluid,
as a product. Sorry, you mean Coca-Cola as in the beverage?
As the beverage. The refrigeration industry allowed them to keep their products frozen, thus easier to sell, and the taste, whatever. What I'm trying to say is that's kind of where we're at with fluid, immersed, virtual desktop, and all of these technologies and big screen, is that they created a really good showcase of what interactions in a virtual space look like, what content consumption looks like. I don't necessarily think that they are an idea that can be turned into a business model that is profitable.
Yeah,
and
it's not easy that the platforms as well hold the power. So unfortunately, like what virtual desktop had is once you have some of those features provided for free at a platform level, people stop feeling the need to search for an answer in that space. Big Screen had a different problem in that the cut for their virtual sales was too deep, and they were not finding it profitable for selling movies, right? That otherwise is a compelling experience. It's like, do I want to go to the cinema potentially with some friends along, and we all get to see Top Gun in 3D? Yeah, sounds cool. But if they can't actually make that profitable for them, it can't exist anymore. It just dies off, right? So this is another strategy to kind of keep that business afloat. But I think, and Jose, I know you love killing him off. He's our X-Man here. But it's like I kind of feel like maybe you did last podcast where the license to survive may be expiring. For the businesses you've just mentioned.
I mean, and that's what I'm trying to say. But you pay $7 to have a different environment change in the application that's giving you the ability to just look at floating screens when so many free alternatives now exist. And that's what's happening is like, how do you turn an experience that's not easily replicated into a paying model?
Yeah, I know. So it's definitely something to be aware of, right? And we are seeing kind of dynamic situation out there in terms of how people are keeping afloat various businesses. But this is just one in particular I wanted to call out because I think Big Screen made an error in judgment there. Next up, a new game that's just been announced, and an oldie for anyone who's been around a while in PC gaming. You might remember the IP Homeworld, I believe there's been 3 games so far, Homeworld 1, 2, and 3, over quite a long span. There's a brand new game coming that's built for VR. It's going to be staged between Homeworld 1 and 2. Homeworld was an RTS, really, real-time strategy game, where you commanded fleets of ships out in space in a 3D environment. So bringing it to spatial computing is a really smart idea for games like this. Now we've seen a few in VR already that are like this. You might be asking, is this the original devs? This is in fact being developed by Farbridge, who are a dev team in Texas. They started in 2017. In terms of their VR acumen, they brought Steam VR support to Walkabout Mini Golf, helping out the devs in that respect. So that they also brought in the tricky crossplay compatibility element. So it sounds like they've got enough pedigree to potentially make this a success for them. They also did content for Battlefield with EA and other several flat games. But Homeworld, I'm curious, any of you fans of Homeworld and the old school spatial RTS?
I don't have the patience.
Yeah, I know it was big, but yeah, it wasn't my thing. Just
Yeah.
ships in space have never really been. I gotta be planet side, at least some of the time.
Never played it, so yeah, I don't even know the game now.
Yeah, I was a big StarCraft guy, but when I got to like this in I think it was late 90s that first came out, or early 2000s, like the spatial environment, it was a little bit too confusing for me to really. I played it, but I didn't play it very long, maybe a couple of hours into it, and definitely demo discs and that type of thing in the era. But I've played some ones in VR that worked really, really well. So far from what I'm seeing, I think it'll be kind of a meh space game. But for anyone who's a real fan of Homeworld, I thought it's exciting that at least there's a studio out there bringing that old IP forward. Speaking of that, more fresh IP, we've got Metal Hellslinger, which is coming. So they've decided to take. I actually thought last year when this landed, and it was kind of like an indie hit. They've got their base game actually being converted for VR. So I'm talking Quest 2, Quest 3, PSVR 2, Vive, and Index. So all the major headsets. You're going to get a discount. You're going to get a discount for the VR version if you already own the flat game. So that's a nice offering from them. Otherwise, it's a standalone Metal Hellslinger version in VR. So what is Metal Hellslinger? It's a fast-paced, definitely stomach-jarring, I will say now, VR game from a flat one that was kind of like Pistol Whip. It's music, rhythm, and shooting all together in kind of a
Pistol
hellscape
Whip
world.
with Doom Eternal or something, sort of.
Perfect. Absolutely. Yes. If Pistol Whip and Doom Eternal had a baby, that is the best way to describe it. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm absolutely not scared of it. It's going to have some motion comfort options. Also, the thing I love, the ability to take the HUD away, strip that away completely if you like. If you're like me and you don't like boxes and gooey and stuff in your face. Looking forward to that one. I haven't played the original Hellslinger. I saw it and I was like, oh, well, I picked this up in an indie, but I was busy with VR. So glad it's come over to the landscape of VR. There's a good old FAQ I see Rowdy throwing up on screen there too. So with that, that's one that we're getting. So we're getting Homeworld, we're getting Hellslinger, but we're not getting Hellblade. The sequel to Hellblade, which we knew it was writing on the wall, I think. I loved the original Hellblade game, Senua's Sacrifice, where they had just such an amazing character. The expression of really kind of mental trauma, I would say, in a game where you really ask yourself the questions like, "Whoa, what's going on?" and you feel so almost taken out of the character and back into the mind, and it's mental. It feels like you're playing a nightmare. The sequel looked incredible from the trailers. Ninja Theory, however, got bought up by Microsoft in 2018, and with Microsoft kind of turning a blind eye to VR to some extent. Certainly from their Xbox Game Studio side, we thought this might happen, that they wouldn't get it. But there's a little bit of ray of hope. Because the game's being built in Unreal Engine 5, there's still a chance that someone's going to, flat to VR convert Hellblade. And I hope
correct way of VR.
the correct way of VR. What? Turning AAA titles into VR through the power of code? Is that what you mean, Jose?
Yes, like I think that good. They shouldn't spend any money on making a VR port. They should have just added a VR controllers, and I don't know. Every time I hear stuff like that, it just bums me out that VR is still seen as some other like little island in the game industry. Just cook them both in. Like whoever, and I don't know, maybe it's content creators' fault for reviewing games that try to do that badly because they're not. I can't
Rowdy,
move around my content studio. You know what I mean? But who knows?
Rowdy doesn't like halfway houses, but
I do
I
not.
do.
That's why I'm being very quiet here because we're gonna get an argument. No.
I, I like. I've definitely warmed to it. Originally, I had my pitchforks out, but in this day and age, like even Returnal, when I saw GT's video showing Returnal in first person, I'm like, that doesn't belong in first person. It's like what I was saying about Deep Rock Galactic the other day. Like, yes, you can VR it, but it inherently changes the game and the feeling and the experience of you as the player. And I really do think, and I said this last podcast, I'll just echo it again, given Jose, you're talking about it, but I think that yeah, just giving the VR camera and that kind of support is low lift for the devs, and it actually gives them an opportunity to cash in on another, I'm going to call it a 10% market share of gamers who want to experience the game and actually live that world a little bit more. Like, I would love it if there was a VR camera for Helldivers. I would eat that up. Absolutely. I would be investing in my PC to make sure it could run, you know, like, definitely.
And maybe I can clarify that for you. It's like when I say that, and it's because it is a halfway house, but it's a halfway house as the initial entry. I think if every single game has a halfway house on the initial entry, then you're allowing the controls to kind of be built upon it, right? I always think about Half-Life 2. Like, wouldn't it be cool if Half-Life Alyx could be played with the same, you know, keyboard and mouse, but then you can bring in the controllers for hand, but then you can just play with keyboard and mouse and headset control, or do the whole entire VR,
Yeah.
and then do sit down and bring it to room scale. Now you're building an inclusive pathway for VR adoption, whether it being, you know, full on, you know, you need every single usable limb. What about wheelchair users, right? That's kind of
No,
how I see it.
it's kind of an accessibility point. I agree with you on that, Jose, and it's an argument that Rowdy and I had on this very podcast some years ago about Subnautica. Subnautica is an amazing immersive experience. The devs started off, they tried to put time and effort and energy into VR support. Inevitably, they jumped off that ship because I think they went in too quick with too little payback for it. And I think if you bite off the full apple and you say, I'm going to put $2 million in VR support, and then no one buys it, it's a huge waste. So that, yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what this is, this ladder system that we're kind of describing, but we probably need to put some words around it so we can refer to it in the future. But I agree with you. I think just take the first rung of the VR ladder and allow us to play how we want to play. Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Jose. Rowdy, did you want to have any counterpoints to that, or you want us to keep going?
Just keep going. No, I'm joking.
Sounds pain.
All right, next up, what have we got? A little snapshot of Meta's last 10 years. And this is coming up for me as well. I'm almost at 10 years as a VR streamer. As I said, I feel like my license got taken away in March, but showing an interesting kind of decades of pioneering products from Meta, right? First off, started off as Oculus with the DK1, the first development kit, taking us right the way through. You know, the CV1's launch, the touch controllers, the Go, right? The first standalone headset after kind of Gear VR toyed with the concept, and then you know, where we are today, right, with MetaQuest 3 and that kind of stuff. Oddly, in this lineup, they show the Portal. Who the feck cares about the Facebook Portal? I don't know. Get it out of there.
I'm so
Whoever made
mad.
the decision, wrong decision. Get it out of that lineup. The Meta glasses, fair enough. You guys are angling towards AR, and those are a great product. I am just teetering on buying the next one. I'm going to ask you live here, Adam. Adam, do you have the transition lens version of those? I think so.
I do, yes, and I would highly recommend those because you
They
can
behave well for, like, if you want to, like, work at home on a screen or whatever, and you've got the transition lenses on and you're in that environment. Does the screen cause the lights in the transition lenses to activate, or no? Actually, only outside do they turn into sunglasses.
It's the yellow transition lenses, so it's not like a super dark. So I almost sometimes wish it had that darker. Actually, I have them now. Let me look at my screen. Oh no, it's fine. Yeah.
This is perfect.
I
Yeah,
almost
there you go.
wish that outside the transition was a little darker, but so it's like protecting your eyes from the UV rays, but not like it doesn't have that dark, like soothing. I don't know how to describe it effect because it's yellow, not I forget what the other codes, it's like G15 yellow or some other thing. But I like them because then I can just go straight from outside inside, and I don't have to worry about like, oh no, now I can't see or whatever. So if you're gonna get them, I highly recommend just getting the transitions
Like
or get them
$50
again
extra.
in some
It's
cases.
not. Yeah,
So bad.
I'm really teetering on buying them again. As I said, I got rid of the first ones, but the AI update comes for everybody.
The AI. Speaking of,
Was that AI? Speaking of, when that comes back in, I'm really keen to kind of hop back into them. So provided Meta doesn't launch another product in advance of that, because we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so just a reminder that for those who've been in since the DK1 days, we're passing the full decade clock, and I think we have come quite a ways. But it's nice to see that. I'm glad that Meta decided to chime the gong and pat themselves on the back for what Oculus and Facebook and Meta have done for the industry. I think it's a nice thing to see, and I'm glad. It's interesting looking backwards though, because all the products that have come and fallen off the face of the planet, the teams that just haven't survived all of that time. Been a lot of change in 10 years, and it's going to be interesting next 10 years. I think we'll see how that goes. So hopefully, still here to report on that 10 years from now. Who knows?
Do it.
That was Meta. Now we get into the goofy midsection of this particular donut, which is April Fool's Day. Okay.
oh no.
So again, I know we're all fans here of Gigodon and his work with Virtual Desktop, but I'm going to call out his April Fool first, because it was the only one that I looked at and I went, for a moment, until I got to the second part of the line. So he announced that he's undertaking a full-time position at Meta Reality Labs, which was funny to see. And he goes on to say, and I love this shot at Facebook. It's amazing. He says, I'll release features and updates at a much slower cadence without really testing stuff before it goes live. So I got to tip my hat. That was an amazing shot. So a lot of people actually, if you look at the comments, it's really funny. A lot of people are congratulating him, patting him on the back. It's like, I don't think he would work with Meta ever.
Yeah,
But,
it's funny because there's like two sides of the comments, right? There's people calling him out saying he shouldn't be doing this because he works in this industry and blah blah blah, and then the other side of the people is like laughing about it or are like congratulating him. I mean, I don't know what to think, but I think it's a good joke. I think that even if Mark would see this, and he would probably still laugh at this
Topical.
because
It's April 1st.
it's April 1st, and we know the kind of, how do I say it, like relationship he has with them, moving in onto his business. But I think it's good. You need to be able to laugh about these kind of things, and I don't think that any executive at Meta would read this and say, and for this reason we will never hire this guy. I think if
April
they
Fool's joke
could,
that he made.
yeah. I don't. I
I
think
just imagine Boz trying to like calm Mark down, getting his. It's April 1st. It's a joke, Mark. Don't take it seriously.
I love
yeah.
it. Yeah. So as much as I try to avoid, some years ago I used to be like Adam's a festive lass. I used to be a April Fool's guy. I'd make up April Fool's things and like I'd do it every year. And one year it was hilarious. I'm going to share a little personal story. I was saying to my parents that we decided to adopt 5 cats, and at the beginning of the day, right? And my mom, who's in Ireland, and dad completely fell for it. And I got a phone call later that afternoon saying, we're so disappointed in you. You aren't going to be able to look after them. Like, you should not do this. It's wrong for those animals. And I just chuckled. And I'm like, Mom, it's April Fool's Day. I was joking. And like, it was so funny getting that heavy-handed message. She actually sent me a little, like a little cat trophy after it. It's kind of like you got me, right? But clearly
God.
he
The
did that.
best one
Now,
is
the next-
still Mike almost getting sued, like
Oh,
because
that was great. Oh my God. Yeah, go on. Tell the story, Rowdy.
Mike had released a video. Mike from Virtuality Oasis here released a video where he was, because it was like when the Oculus was coming out with like their wireless tool, this and that. Oh, it was HT5 coming out with their wireless stuff, and he said,
Wireless
well,
modifier.
you can easily make a wireless model of the Oculus headset here as well, and he like like he had like a broken one or something, and he cut the cable, and then he like said, see, and if you didn't just do this and that, and he like explained how, then you can use it wirelessly. And there were people like commenting on this video. Again, I don't know if they were real, but there were like some people like seriously pissed off because they actually had done that, because they trusted his channel, like this and that, and blah blah. I mean, people are stupid, right? So he took the video down.
The problem there is, Rowdy, the problem there is that British humor is often very dry, and it's not, you don't have like an intonation in your voice or anything. And so from what I remember of the comments, and I remember the dad of one particular kid where they're like, we trusted you and all this kind of stuff. Like I remember when I was early in my relationship with my wife, like she was like, that's not humor. That's just you lying. It's like, yeah, but that's the Irish British, like it's the British Isles take.
Wait, what were you lying about?
I don't remember. I joke all the time about silly stuff like that. But the point is that, like, I think in American culture generally, you expect there to be a kind of an intonation in the voice sometimes, and so it's less of a gotcha. And Mike's video was done so well. I'm still to this day bittersweet that he took it offline. He took it offline to avoid, I suppose, any more butthurt from people actually getting struck by it. But he did an exceptional job. I'd love if he brought it back, like very overtly, like let's revisit this April Fool's Day video like 5 years later.
Gotta make it obvious for the stupid people.
Yeah, that'll take him really serious.
No,
I
exactly.
think also it's good to know also the regional times when it comes to April Fools. Like I think April 2nd is much more dangerous than April 1st. Because now you're getting stuff from April 1st showing up in your algorithm, and you don't know if it's an April 1st prank.
Check the dates and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 hours ago. Wait, hang on a second. Let me do the math. Yeah. So there's that one, and then the other one that I wanted to show off was the Nintendo headset that was shown by IGN, which is a VR headset, which looks like their Nintendo Labo, the cardboard kind of creation VR headset, which they had, but taken forward. And towards the end of that particular video, they show like, I'll call it like a car accident style thing, but I'll let Rowdy run the video, and you guys, if you haven't seen it, can kind of react live to that.
Work they put into this fake though, it's so sad. Like,
I know.
It's such a bummer. And so then I feel like even more so, like we're never gonna see it because they're making fun of it, right?
I know. That's the worst part.
Look that big.
I know, and then they're showing like Animal Crossing furniture going into your room, and
shut up, Nintendo.
I know. The thing is, they did a good job with Labo. I mean, it was a cool product. I really had a good time, even with the non-VR one. It was really well supported on the software side. Really fun to do, with kids or whatever.
Creepy Luigi.
Yeah, Mario Kart.
Just the
open
turning
road
of Luigi. That's all slow and creepy for some reason.
To be honest, he's kind of always been creepy. So that was the Virtual Boy Pro from Nintendo, which, as Adam says, I think we'll never see. I think they will never revisit Virtual Boy anything, given how much that bombed. But that was that. There you go. Now, last episode, we... before I move on, did anyone see any other April Fools that you want to call out?
I think Linus Tech Tips did one that was really, really good, where he ended up making a video where they said they were downscaling their current operations into their original house. So they show like a clip where they had like 10 editors having bunk desks in a small office. So that was a pretty funny one.
Oh, nice. Rowdy or Adam?
We added fart sounds to our pre-alpha app.
I saw that.
Not to the Live app, but we've got that the volumetric stuff that we're working on. That's called just Project Live Spatial. And I had done a TikTok a couple days ago that's like, oh, pick the click sound for our thing. And most people picked the joke one, which was farts. So I asked the developers, like, can we actually make like an April Fool's build where we just replace the click sound with the sounds they wanted, and we were able to do it. It might be gone now because we only ran it for like a couple days, but yeah, every click sound was just a fart, and because we're children and we love it.
I love that.
This is the thing, like some people really put a lot of effort into April Fool's stuff when you're like, just put the effort into a real project for feck's sake, But anyway, Rowdy, did you run across anything that you liked or hated?
I told my boss I wasn't working that day, and he laughed. He knew it was April Fool's.
Oh,
it's depressing.
Yeah,
he fired me afterwards. No, I'm joking.
best one that I can remember from being a teenager, because I was a total troll then, was I took those like projector film sheets that are clear, transparent, and I would put graffiti on it and put it on the laptop screen of my teacher at the time. And so it looked like one of the students had done graffiti on her laptop, and she flipped the feck out. I had to stop her like 10 seconds in because I could tell we were about to have a situation. I was like, no, not real, not real.
That's
Thankfully,
pretty
didn't end
good.
up in the
That's
principal's
clever.
office or anything, but that was fun. Okay, so with that, let's move on to the Hideo helmet. Like again, Jose, we're like on the same brainwave here or something. I don't know what's going on, but last time we talked about Three Body Problem. I've since finished that series.
Same.
I think it's I'm gonna give a very simple review without anything spoiling, but I think it's like an uncomfortable hamburger. In other words, I get to the end of the meal, I want more. But it's also quite lumpy in that there are episodes that are amazing, and there's cliffhangers that are great, and there's times when I'm just like, what the hell are you guys doing? So worth still doing. Features a feckin' awesome headset. I don't take back what I said last time. I want to live that world. It'd be great. But Netflix have actually gone about sending out the headset, this fingerprint magnet chrome dome, out to other people. So Hideo Kojima actually got a copy of this that showed up in his studio, and he unboxes the thing. Obviously not scared about mind control or whatever. Throws this thing on, and it's fun for a couple of seconds look. But yeah, I think the headset design is honestly terrible. I would never go for Chrome as a headset.
I dig it. I was thinking the complete opposite. I was like, I kind of would. I want one of these just so I can mod my like a headset in there.
How though? There's like no you can see it's like right up against his eyes. You know,
Oh,
like
I
there's
can make
no
it happen.
space.
Would
All
that
right.
attract fingerprints? Is it like a fingerprint heavy head like thing? I wonder.
Yeah,
Finish, you
yeah.
know, because then
Oh,
that would bother me every time I put the headset on, just
Exactly.
knowing like there's fingerprints all over. I can't see it, but I know it's there.
That's why I couldn't do it. I couldn't live it. It's the same thing with Apple Vision Pro. I see people with Apple Vision Pro, and I'm just like, I just see the fingerprints. It's like I can't love the tech, unfortunately. Black glossy fingerprint magnet, that is. Okay, so that's your. Did anyone else dive into Three Body Problem since? I'm curious if anyone saw it.
Nope.
Eventually.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's the right place.
When I
for it.
feel for a lumpy hamburger, I'll
A
consider it.
lumpy hamburger. Yeah, that's a very interesting way of describing that show. But I kind of agree. I don't think I've ever had a lumpy hamburger, but I can get it.
What about a space burger? You know, there's a flip.
Yeah.
The other thing that I saw on the feed that was pretty neat out there is, and I don't know if this is going to become VR or not, but I've got my hopes. Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails has launched a new, call it media company, labeled after one of his previous albums, With Teeth. Love the name. I think it's really cool, really punchy. But Kent Bai kind of showed this off on Twitter. Now, something that I remember from more than a decade ago was the Year Zero album and an alternate reality game that like went across the web, and it was really deep, really, really cool. So things that I've seen Trent do project-wise are some of the best in the biz. And now there's the chance for Reznor to come into the metaverse space. Now, this is particularly tied to the Fortnite kind of method and algorithm there in terms of what they've constructed, that whole engine, that environment, the whole crossing of big IPs into this game world, into this game space. And Reznor was kind of calling out Zuckerberg, kind of calling the metaverse bullshit and like all the lies that brought us.
Everybody wants Mark, man.
I know.
Why is Trent Reznor beefing with Mark Zuckerberg?
I think it's funny. And so like the good thing is that when you see an artist like that who's got a good kind of design aesthetic and can kind of bring that and imbue that into anything, like I really do hope we end up with a VR project from Nine Inch Nails or this new company With Teeth. It'd be really cool to see something come into this space, no matter what it is.
I just don't understand. Like, you can build a VR product without going for Mark's head. Like, just leave that guy alone. Like, he just celebrating 10 years and everybody just wants blood from him.
Everyone's wanted blood from Mark since the moment, since the moment the original Facebook launched, he's been taking flack. He gets flack from me. He gets flack from everybody.
Dude,
I get it.
I think all of it. I think I've become like a Mark stan. Like, I'm a fan of Mark now. It's just I feel bad for the guy. Like, everybody just wants blood from him.
Yeah, well, he's a fighter, so
yeah. There we go. That's probably why.
You can take it, So, with that, and speaking of mind control, let's move on to Apple. They've filed a new patent, which is showing EarPods, right, that have I'll call it brain control capability. So this is a really cool little patent. Now, we've seen feck tons of patents from Apple over the years, most of them not coming to fruition. But this is a pretty cool idea. The concept that given now you have touch input and gestures with Apple Vision Pro, and how well that's currently working, the idea that you could have some earpods in, not just controlling your sound, but also listening essentially, like an EEG or something like that, I suppose, that it can pick up on your signals and instruct then what you want to happen. Kind of an interesting thing, but yeah, some people out there are worried about brain control coming in the shape of earpods.
The other way, right? It's your brain controlling the earpods, not the earpods that are going to control your brain, right?
What if your ear absorbs the thing, and then there's some kind of reverso technology, and then you don't know. You don't know, Rowdy. It's the corporations.
Reverso. Wow, that's a word that I'm gonna have to carry forward. I like it. Reverso. So yeah, so there's that. I mean, we've seen so many different demonstrations of control in that mechanism. Now, the other thing that was really interesting, I'm interested on your take on this, Rowdy. I don't have any media to back this up, but the first patient between Neuralink. Did we talk about that last episode? We might have.
No.
I think we did.
Talk about
no.
The first patient of Neuralink last episode.
Yeah. Did you see? So there's a guy who is quadriplegic, who was the first live Neuralink patient, and he has the ability to control. How can I describe this? Like he's got extended capabilities as a result of his implant. And this is something we were talking about before, maybe 2-3 years ago now. They did it with pigs, and they showed them running around, and they were successful candidates in terms of the I don't have the words, the implant that goes on your brain and all that kind of stitching
BCI?
fiber that they have to do. Yeah, so it's a BCI, it's a brain computer interface.
I sent you the link for that on the group chat.
All right.
Did you see it, Jose?
Yeah, and actually the video I'm sending you is the same patient playing games on PC.
That was it. So the gaming
So
side of it was
cool.
really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more? I'm just sorry, it wasn't something I fixated on or took notes on.
Yeah, so they created they're mapping every single gesture from what the device can read, including like mouse pointer gestures. So now like games that are flat screen based, like chess games and point and click games, I think they're accessible to him now.
Yes,
And then-
RTSs, I think specifically. So that got me interested in, because Rowdy's a big Age of Empires lad, and I'm like, hey Rowdy, guess what? Think if you could be working, but at the same time, or maybe in your dreams, you can be playing Age of Empires. Forget resting. You don't need to rest.
But
You got castles to upgrade.
this is the thing that frustrates me with anything that Elon Musk's ever makes. It's this entire dream facade around the actual core thing that is where this is going to be used for. Because he advertises this indeed as this is something that everyone is going to be implemented, and everyone's going to get an implant, and I just don't see that happening. I don't want to say ever. Because of course technology changes and eventually maybe that will do, but to have an invasive surgery into your brain, drilling through your skull to implement that, I just don't see it happening. And even if it's neuromodulatory, which means that they're not going to drill into your skull but place something onto your skull that will then influence, which would reduce the amount of signal that they're sending, reduce the targeted efficiency, which completely defeats the entire purpose of doing the Neuralink, because the Neuralink, what is so specific and so special about it, because it's not the technology that is new. It's not doing the implementation that is new. It is that it is so thin that you're doing minimal damage with the insertion of the probe. Because deep brain stimulation has been around for decades. We've been doing DBS in Parkinson's patients and people with specific kind of neurological disorders. We used to lobotomize people. That's a form of brain modulation that we used to do, and that was very effective. It wasn't right because you were doing a lot of wrong stuff, but we've evolved past that, and we've now been becoming much and much more targeted. But the target group for this kind of technology is indeed people who are quadriplegic. People who are having specific neurological issues, Parkinson's disease, maybe even at some point major depression, not people who are like going through
Yeah.
depressive episodes, but who can't function anymore. Maybe severe addiction. You know, like people who have severe neurological or
Valley.
neuropsychological problems, who play way too much Age of Empires. Those are the people that they're gonna be targeting with these kind of technologies.
So,
Good
so from an optimistic angle, what would be the killer app that would make you go like, okay, I'll consider this? Like, I feel like playing like controlling devices ain't going to be it for me.
No, I mean, I don't think that there will be a killer app because it would have to be approved by a medical commission team. It's
It'll
not
be a
going to
killer
be.
app, right?
Yeah, I was
Okay,
gonna say
so
from Adam's side.
but
Cute.
what if it gets approved? What would be the feature that you go that would make you consider getting
Surgery.
a minimal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying okay.
Omnipresent consciousness.
Mm. Oh, I actually like that.
Omnipresent consciousness.
Well,
So
yeah,
you're not
that's-
sleeping, you're not resting, it's just
No, I mean, maybe shared consciousness.
Oh, so you mean multiplayer brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Nah,
that.
I'm
kind
with
of
you
stuff.
on that.
Such a scientist.
But I mean, our brains are not built for that. We would have to replace our brains for that as well. But anyway, that's like maybe like 500 years in the future or something. You know, if we're still around at that time. You know, I don't know.
I
But
probably
like,
won't be.
I just don't see this currently with it being an invasive technology working for a general population. Nobody's going to be allowed to, if you're healthy, to be putting stuff into your brain.
Okay,
don't think-
Mr. Scientist. So you're saying multiplayer as your answer to Jose's thing, right? Like I want a
No, I'm
multiplayer.
saying
You want to be the Borg. He wants to be the Borg.
I'm
is
saying
what
a
he's
shared consciousness, which means that
Yeah.
what everyone knows, you know.
hive mind.
Yes.
Yeah, a hive mind.
I'm so down with that.
That's what would be cool, right?
I think my answer to Jose's question would be I would just want to never have to put a headset on again. In other words, in the same way that you have those like electric showers that can modulate and say, okay,
Right.
translucent or opaque, I'd want it so that I would have a switch when I'm like, hey, it's game time, baby. I just switch it and I'm immersed. Like, you know, my vision's opaque. You know,
So the
can't see
6
and
seconds
I'm
that you
in.
take from like, you know, putting on the headset or like starting up the computer, that's enough for you to inject stuff into your brain.
That's a lot. That's a lot
Get
of
some
time when you think about
neurological
it.
damage.
Like when you stack it all up, that's a good amount of time that you spend most of your life doing.
Think about it this way, Rowdy, right? You're in the dentist chair, you get in a root canal, and you're like, I feel like
I
these
know.
vampires.
Like, have any of you ever read Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince? There is a concept there. So the concept there is that he basically he can like some merchant is selling him a pill, and with that pill he will never have to for example drink water again. I think it's drinking water. He will never have to drink water again, which means that he doesn't have to spend the time to go to the well, to go and fetch water. You know, he would spend, you know, all of that. He would have a lot of more time. And the merchant asked him, like, what would you do with all of that time that you receive from not having to go to the well and drinking water? And the answer is, I don't know. I will probably just walk to the well, you know, because I like to walk to the well. It's relaxing. And that concept stuck with me a little bit with like, you know, you can optimize for time, but sometimes it's good to do these kind of things because they're like, yeah, okay. I mean, you don't have to agree.
No, but I think it's interesting though. It's a good question. It's like, what do we do? Like, if you look at that on the broad spectrum, like even humanity, what do we do with all the time since we're not farming, right?
Yeah.
What do we do? What, TikTok? Make
Yeah.
that funny YouTube
It's-
video? Like, are we actually advancing as a society? Like, I know some of us are, right? But what about the masses? Like, I get your point. I
I just
get
want the
sense.
toggle. I want the ability to just disable like all warning checks. Like, you know, like how you can like you can turn off the lights or engine lights on the car. Do something like that for me. Just like turn off all checks and YOLO it out. See what happens.
Game- I'm picturing that's like
Yeah.
a really advanced version
Fear,
of the
anything that
clapper,
would stop
you know?
human from
clapper.
progressing. Yeah, no, I want to turn off all features.
Like, turn off your light switches with your brains. You don't even have to clap anymore. Wow, look
Yeah.
how much time we've saved.
It sounds like a Bond villain. You know,
Now
like
we're
I don't
talking.
feel pain. I
Yes,
don't.
no pain, no remorse, no embarrassment. Just turn me into
Right
a killing
before
machine.
every
Just
business
kidding.
meeting, you just go in, switches are off.
Turn me into the robot from
Psychopath.
Terminator, the AI.
Oh my lord, Adam, did you give an answer to Jose yet? This is a good question.
Oh, I need to have multiple features. Like it can't just be one because I do like the idea of sort of like, oh, I'm RoboCop now. It's like an AR, maybe not like old RoboCop, but more modern. You know, you can play games or have heads-up displays without wearing a heads-up display. But I also want, and I don't know how brains work. I would
And just
kill you.
imagine Adam in like a RoboCop, just so advanced, only to move like an old school tank.
Well,
I'm just
the
worried she's playing
idea of
duck
the
hunts and
visor.
shooting civilians at the same time. That's my concern.
That
Like,
was the only way I
don't
could think to
trust this
describe it. It's like a modern RoboCop HUD, but
Right.
in combination with that, like something that sort of like what Rowdy was mentioning, I want to be able to control like how much I eat. Like I don't want to not eat because you need to eat to live, but sort of like a more advanced, they have the lap band and the surgeries they have to prevent weight loss, but it's, starting up here so that I won't feel hungry unnecessarily or
That's really interesting.
you know,
Or
Actually,
you can, but if you have control of all that, you can overclock certain parts of your body, and then you can just overclock your stomach acids, and now you can consume even more.
wow,
and burn
Jose,
even
you are
faster.
such an
Listen,
engineer.
If we're
You're
going
such an engineer. He's like, just expose me the panel of options,
overclock
and I'm gonna
pancreas.
play.
I mean, sometimes overclocking can be bad for a computer. I can only imagine what that would do. To
You
your
don't want to
body.
start overclocking for sure. Don't, please don't.
Jesus,
Attach a box fan to yourself, keep yourself cool.
We know so little
Yeah.
about the brain that, even injecting stuff into it right now is already so risky.
I'm imagining, he's overclocking his stomach acid, and I'm imagining the scene from Alien where the goo is dripping through the metal floor. Like
Yes.
this acid just plops through his whole body. Shit. Put that up a little too high.
That's what
Okay,
the warning
guys.
labels tell you about.
Oh, God.
Like,
Don't
Thank you.
overclock.
The website. I'll
This is
be
good.
selling the human body mods.
Gonna live Deus Ex. Oh yeah, let's do it. I could get my nano sword out. All right. So with that, let's move in a little bit deeper into the Apple ecosystem with something that they brought out recently, the spatial personas, which is kind of a nifty thing. So essentially, it's taking the canary out of the coal mine to some extent, because spatial personas used to be stuck in a box, right? And this wasn't for very long. Obviously, Vision Pro only launched recently, but now you can take your friend, your colleague, your coworker, your grandma, whoever has a headset and is talking with you, and plonk them right there in your pass-through environment in your home space. And it means that they can virtually kind of sit on your couch, sit alongside you at the breakfast table. And I saw a bunch of creators do cute little videos of this, so I thought we'd just rattle right through them. The first one up is, sadly, it's Bradley, showing Bradley and Mike sitting on the couch watching a film, playing some games. And actually, while this one's running, I'll tell you that I came to understand, I know we talked about this when Vision Pro launched, but it went out of my head. And now I'm jealous that Game Room is a game that was brought by Resolution Games, very similar to kind of the original Oculus rooms where you get together with someone and play checkers or whatever. But they've got, Battleship and a number of other different features, chess, checkers, this kind of thing, brought by Resolution Games specifically for Apple Vision Pro. So now I'm feeling as the odd one out because I don't get to play that game. But it looks like Mike and Brad had a great old time. They were looking at pictures of his dog and whatever.
I love how you wrote, like, "Hi, I'm Brad."
Bradley's intro is always great, and then it's his corgi that he's got showing it off. So for our audio listeners, the next one we're going to show off is from Nathy. Nathy brought some friends over his house, sat him down on his couch, showed off his cool area. Sorry if you were jumping into Kaz, then that's no problem. You pick what we've got up, Rowdy. Just make sure I know what we have because I'm on a delay here. So, but Nathan's got his kind of well-lit environment, meeting his buddies on the couch. And just to be clear to everyone, because this video makes it look like, and I think most creators have said, oh, they're there in my living room. The other people in headsets cannot see your environment. They see their environment. So whereas you might be sat in, I don't know, an old Winnebago, and they're in the passenger seat, Nathan's there with the person sat on the couch. But the point is that they're spatial. So where they're sat in space, if they get up and move, you'll see them, get up and move or whatever.
Pretty cool.
But you also get the kind of tilted head look around. So they feel like you're in the environment with you, makes for a more natural, immersive conversation. And that's the whole point. The third video that he's showing is Norm from Tested, right? Playing a game of chess across his bed. So this is just showing you like how people are using this tech, the spatial avatars, essentially, the personas, as Apple calls them, in this new way. And the last one on the video is Kaz and Cherry. And so they were showing that off as well. So just wanted to say good job to the creators for kind of like showcasing this. It does definitely make it interesting. Gives me a little bit of FOMO not being an Apple Vision Pro user. I don't think I will be one, but so I'm not saying yet because I don't think I need the Apple ecosystem in my life again. But it's pretty cool. Even some sweet baby rays at full scale. You can drop in 3D models. You can share some screens. So yes, you can watch the same video together. You can play spatial games like that Game Room by Resolution Games. And those are the things that you can currently do. So if drawing on a whiteboard to your friends is something that you find would enrich your life for $3,500, maybe you should reconsider getting an Apple Vision Pro. Thoughts, team? What do you think about this?
But something I can appreciate is that, like, regardless of where, I'm assuming you can kind of move the person in your space where you'd like, and that's how they get them on the couch, because they can't, obviously see your environment, but that they can, no matter where you move them, you can still talk face to face. Like, it doesn't like I can't. I'm not technical minded, so I don't know how that works, but that's something that I think a lot of like social apps or kind of, mixed reality passive experiences like this miss out on, is like, yeah, if you move the person around, does that then change where you are in their view or vice versa? So you're no longer, you guys are over here, but to me, you're over here. So now I look like I'm talking to a wall or something. So that, I feel like that's such a small, subtle thing, but very important that they had to try to calculate those positions. And
maybe chat can help us out there in terms of what happens with a rotation. I saw kind of a rotation vector happening in some instances. I don't know if that was controlled by the user at the far end, or if that was, I'll call it like an auto rotation centering that was happening. Anyway, this is both spatial and kind of special, right?
Yeah.
Interesting to see what the patch.
What it got me thinking about is like, is this going to be like the new, blue bubble that Apple's building, since now they're being forced to open up their messaging? I feel like this is going to be their new blue bubble, because there's going to be alternative headsets that are going to be able to do something similar. And what does multiplayer look like, or multiplayer experiences look like when you have a non-Apple headset? And then and let's say Resolution Game says, hey, the Quest Pro 2 has support, so now you can bring in non-Apple users. And what does the persona look like at that? Is it going to be obvious it's not an Apple persona, where you have a blocky, cartoony looking one like the Mark Zuckerberg one, the meme, and then you have like the persona in the same room?
Not happening. I don't think Tim Cook will do that. Like, I don't think they're going to play nice with other ecosystems. I mean, does that work today? Can you FaceTime someone from Skype? I don't think so.
But Skype works on both platforms, and that's what I'm trying to say. Is what does the AR kit look like in experiences that multiplayer is enabled, right? Because you can use, like Skype, for example, between a Microsoft Teams for Mesh, kind of works. What I'm just trying to figure out, what does coexistence look like for different headsets? Is Apple going to like lock down, because the spatial persona, for what I saw, can be brought into other apps. So
yeah, I can, right? Like, so I've been chatting overnight with somebody in Discord, for example, Arcanian, who's in chat, right? And I see his face and I see his Apple persona, but it's in Discord. It's running on a Windows operating environment. If you consider other VR ecosystems to just be other operating environments, then why would you restrict that persona from walking about? And then in vice versa, when Meta finally gets to their, codec avatar or whatever it's being called, will that be able to come onto a Mac? Don't know. I think there's a little war there that needs to happen, a little push-pull, tug of war. But I do think that although Apple aren't the first ones to try in this space to kind of bring colleagues together in a space to play a game, to collaborate, it's a really good one. And so far, from the people who have used it firsthand, I've had nothing but positive experiences coming back. So very cool. Just another pin on the pinup board to make me want to go get into Apple Vision Pro. But as I said, I'm still a PC guy, so I'm not convinced yet. Keep trying, Tim. Keep trying. Any other thoughts on that, on the spatial personas.
Spatial.
Oh, Adam, thank God we're giving you the trigger board so you can just bring all that in. The other thing that I would just say is Ben from Road to VR made a good comment about what I'll call unhindered social. He was saying how much he loves we can finally get to spatial environments and allowance for non-in-game players to dial into the environment and just spectate. So, again, one of these chess games or one of those board games, and you have other people and their own Apple Vision Pros in the environment, having the chat, participating as if we're all sitting in the same room, but they're not players and they're not influencing the game. So it's like watching two people in a park, play checkers, something like that. So
it's gonna be
that
awesome
is
for RTS games, I think.
very neat. Oh, that's a cool idea.
Like you remember, I forgot the name of the one.
Brass Tactics?
Yeah, exactly. But then something like that in like a mixed reality way.
Oh,
That'd be
Man,
kinda cool.
yeah, I just
On the
imagine what you're
table?
talking about. You're talking about like newscasting, like how the news anchor has like the
Yeah.
weather map behind them. You can actually overlay an RTS screen and in
Yeah.
real time point. So now
Yeah,
you're not
for
even
the
using a
casting,
cursor.
for casting you can do that, and for playing you can watch the board. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities.
Oh man, now I'm excited.
I'm excited for a future VR weather forecasts where they show you a complete topographical map of your environment, and they're like, "Here's the clouds coming, and it's going to rain on your house."
In your
like,
metaverse. Don't go to this area of the metaverse.
but no, like the RTS concept. The closest I got to that, Rowdy, was I've blown up Demio full scale in my basement environment with my wife, and you could walk around the board, and like
okay.
you have the creatures be like big.
Yeah.
Really sizable. And one of the things chat was just saying, sorry I didn't catch who said it, but it's a pity that you can't. Oh, Arcanian was saying it's a pity you can't scale the other person. I can just imagine someone blowing me up huge and being like, "Whoa, look at Sim's nose!" But
That's how I'm going to telepresence for meetings. Just
That's right.
giant, just pop up as a giant head. You're fired.
Wow. I imagine the head in Golf Plus when you go God size. That's funny. Or mini golf, right? Mini golf when you got that. That's fun. So that was the spatial personas from Apple. They seem to be making good headway in that, and quickly too, which is important. I am so up for this race between Zuckerberg and Cook. We're like, who wants to take it? Like, I love when there's competition, and I feel like finally the pressure's on Meta again to not be a total fuck up. I'm sorry, but like they've had the arena for like 3 years, and it's like it's about time that someone's actually
And
challenging.
don't
It's really
forget
Sony.
Trent Reznor. He's in the race now too.
Yeah, right there. We'll see. I have my doubts as to what. I'm just hopeful as a Nine Inch Nails fan that something would come of that, but yeah. And I don't think we'll ever see anything VR from Tool, unfortunately. But with that, let's spin it over. Adam's been testing not only the Metaframe, she's got the XReal Air 2. So why don't we flip over and hear a good review after your week or two, I suppose, with these new specs.
Yeah, it's been weird. I've become like more of a glasses person, and I feel bad. I guess I don't feel bad, but I like for everyone who needs prescription lenses. I always feel like I can't give much advice on that, on those angles because I don't need them. Yay, but I know a lot of people do. But anyway, I have the XReal Air 2s. Let me take the blackout covers off here so it's a little easier. I do. Yeah, these are actually quite slim, which I can appreciate. And I got the reds because, it goes with the hair, but they also have black too for you normies. I do want to say, though, that this is just original Air 2s. Like, now they have the Air 2 Pro and the Air 2 Ultra, which the naming's really confusing. And so in the past, I've talked about, like, hand tracking and how they have, like, a dimmer switch on them so that you don't need the blackout covers. That's not this one. This is just the regular, like, more consumers are probably going to get this one for the Air 2 and the Air Pro, mostly for like developers right now to be able to make software for. But otherwise, if it was the hand tracking, it just has little, the little sensors on the top here. But anyway, to the Air 2s. So these are TLDR. You can plug them into your computer, your phone, a Switch, and consoles with some caveats. So the most basic use case is basically USB-C to USB-C. You can plug it into phone and laptop, and that just gives you a display that you can see in your glasses. And that, to me, is kind of boring. Like, cool, you can see a display in your glasses, neat. But
Just to ask you a
what
question on that. When you plug it into your
Mhm.
phone, what do you see? Do you just see your phone screen, or do you
Yeah.
see something? Okay.
the basic use case is just you see your phone screen and you would interact with your phone on the phone just as you would normally with the apps and touchpad or whatever. But
Cool.
actually, I do want to make a point too. It's kind of annoying, but if you want to use it on your desktop or with consoles, you do need like a HDMI to USB-C, uh, and then USB power adapter. So it's kind of annoying. Like this is a $25 cable that I feel like should have kind of come with the glasses because people will probably want to use it on gaming consoles and
Yeah, that'd be my first
desktop
use case.
too.
I'd be like Steam Deck,
Uh,
Switch. I want to plug it in and use it. So, just talk me through so from the glasses to the console. What all do I need?
You'll need the glasses plus this this crazy ass adapter. Yeah, not too bad. It's like, but it's $25, but you can use it for like desktop and console. So
So
this
from
is
the glasses, you're
HDMI,
plugging in what?
the USB-C,
USB-C.
hmm
Okay, and where on the
and
glasses
then
does it connect?
to the back here. It's a little
Okay, it comes down off the back of
little,
the side of the frame. That's cute. Okay.
and then the HDMI, obviously, so you can actually get the display in the glasses. But then it needs to be powered too, so that's where the USB part comes in. Because there's no battery. I mean, I do want to mention that like they're AR glasses, but the ones that are out now, it's not like they have a battery in them and just work solo. It's using the battery off the device that you're plugging it into, whether that's your phone or laptop or Switch or whatever. Yeah, where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So anyway, one of my monitors actually died mid doing this, so I've actually been able to use this a lot for
That's
productivity.
awesome.
And, no, it's not. My monitor
Well,
died.
then you got a monitor at least. Not that it died.
I'm just
That's
kidding.
awesome.
That's awesome that it died.
Yay,
So
more money
glad
to
for your
spend.
loss.
Yeah.
But so I did, on the flip side, like Jose was mentioning, get to use this a lot for work because I feel like I've become super spoiled and I can't like one monitors is not enough. But so again, the XReal actually has software that they release for the phone or for desktop or PC rather that's called Nebula. And I've mostly been using it with the PC over the phone just because I have a Samsung S21 and I don't know if it's just starting to get older, but whenever I run the Nebula app on my phone, it's really cool because you can move, monitor screens around and stuff and have multiple windows. So I have high hopes for it on the phone, but my problem is when I type, it's delayed as fuck. Like I'll type in a sentence and then I have to sit back there and kind of wait for the sentence to
Oof.
finish, and I'm like, I
Wow,
can't work
okay.
like this.
Yeah.
So
This is on your
I don't.
phone?
That's on my phone, so I
That's
don't
right.
know
Have
if
you
it's
tried, and that's what I was going to ask, because you have a Samsung. Have you tried using the Knox, I think it's called? Their
No.
OS? Their
Dex?
Dex, sorry, that's what
Yes.
it's called, Dex.
Yes. So you can either like technically 3 use cases on the phone. Basic plug and play. You get your screen. It moves with the glasses. Nebula, which is XReal's custom app. Super cool concept, but again, maybe good for movie watching, but I can't work in it because I can't type. And then
So
Dex,
it's
which
delayed, but can you pin the location? But I'm trying to understand how
yeah.
you're working. So you have your one monitor and your dead monitor. Rest in peace.
Well, this is for phone. Sorry, I kind of cut back and forth,
Oh,
but this
okay.
one, what Rowdy's actually showing is how you could use it in the phone. You can actually
Right.
have multiple, browser screens up, and
Oh.
you can bring them closer or further to you. And I will have a caveat. So when you record in the glasses, the background's just black. So what I did was I put my Meta glasses over my XReal glasses to record that. So it's not synced correctly,
That's
but
so
the
smart.
screen stays in place. So your head's moving and you're only seeing that part of the screen. But you can
Yeah.
you can make as many windows as you want until your phone blows up. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't tested that. You can resize them, bring them further back to you. So that part was really cool because I'm like, holy crap, I've just made my phone other than the typing latency, a completely functional workspace, which was weird.
So wait,
Um,
you're basically running multiple browser tabs as separate windows, or
through their app. It's
Yeah.
a Nebula app that you launch, and then that kind of has its own dashboard. So it has a
very
limited
cool.
amount of
Okay.
stuff you can do on it. Like you can have browsers, and there's like a movie watching app that's got like pre-roll B movies or whatever. But you can't just open up like you can't just open up Pokemon Go and have it, be AR or whatever. It's
Right.
got to be it's got to have the XReal treatment to be able to run through their software. So yeah, other than the fact that the typing was it was so latent. Again, not sure if that was because of my phone's hardware limitations or the software itself, but has high potential. So anyway, the best use case that I found when it came to work obviously was with my desktop and laptop. And again, there's a beta Nebula software that they have for PC, and that one pretty much functions the same way. You can have multiple setups, either 3 windows, or you can have a curved monitor, and you can adjust again the distance, the size, the curvature. So I would just sit here, with my one monitor, but I'd actually have 3 on the side of me, and it was pretty performant. Obviously, because it's using the power of my computer, which is much more, I have
You're
a
running
higher
off a
GPU on this.
laptop or a desktop?
I
in
did
this-
both. I did both. I tried with
But
so
it was
my
fine in both cases.
yeah. I will say though, with my laptop, there's some like performance-wise, it was fine, but there's like a screen jittering kind of effect when you're turning your head. So it's almost like a pixelation tear a little bit. That's only noticeable when you move around. But otherwise, if you're just doing normal tasks, it just feels like the same. I don't feel like I'm losing frames as when I'm doing them on my just with the actual physical
What do you mean? So
monitor.
did you find, and did you try that for kind of a couple hours or something, or how?
Yeah, like 6 to 8 hours. Not like flat. Obviously, I get up for breaks and to get tea and stuff, but just as my normal workspace, normal time, and I found it fine and actually liked it because I only have my laptop obviously only has 1 monitor, but my desktop has 2, and the second one I put up here because I don't really have much space. So it was nice to actually have 3 that I could have, horizontally in a row and be able to resize if I needed to. So I'm looking forward to using them again.
So
in that case.
so this is Adam's talking about the XReal Air 2 for anyone who just
Mhm.
caught the conversation. Are you talking about actually using like 1 or 2 IRL screens plus what you have in the glasses, or are these being represented in virtual, and so your focus is only on virtual?
My focus is only on virtual. I'm not using.
Okay.
I mean, my real monitor, the main one, might be open in the background, but I put it on super dim so it's not distracting. Or I guess I could just
That's what I
turn it
do
off.
too.
But all virtual. And it's nice because again, if you're using the Nebula app built by XReal, so it's not just the plug and play like cool. I can see my screen, big whoop. That one, yeah, it's anchored in place, and so your monitors rather stay where they are in space. And that's
space.
really nice. Yeah.
That's
So
so
it
rad.
saved my work productivity for last week because I was like, oh god, I have to like wait for my other monitor to get
How
shipped.
configurable is that with Nebula at the moment? Can you stack monitors on top of each other, or do they have to be horizontally
On the
displayed?
mobile app, you could literally do anything you want. You could put them on top of each other. You can float like the depth you can change if you want one window sort of above the other one. You can pretty
That's
much
cool.
do
Okay,
whatever.
that's
But
cool.
the desktop one's a little bit more limited. You can pretty much just change like size, distance, and curvature. But I think that one they're still working on. It's still in beta. But at minimum functions, it did enough. I don't need to do anything fancy. I just wanted to have 3 monitors that were readable so I could work. I wasn't looking for crazy
And Is
configurations.
there translucency while you're working? Like, is it not full opaque, the windows that you're working on, or the windows full opaque and you're still able to see your surroundings? I'm trying to imagine what
Still
it's like to be Adam working.
Still see through them, but I have usually the brightness on almost max for the display that's in the glasses. So like, it's not distracting because I'm so focused on the window, like that your eyes are kind of focused on that and not behind it. But I mean, there's like 9 different levels of brightness, I suppose you could say, for the display and the glasses. I found it inside to be bright enough. I don't know if I'd ever use these outside. It's only 500 nits, so it's not
500's
that
pretty-
bright. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I have a question about it though. Are you using the blockers? So you're using the kind of pass through, no blocker while you're working.
No, no blockers. I don't
That's
feel like I need them. Yeah. Actually, I kind of like being able to sort of have that peripheral. I don't know if you want to call it peripheral because you're just sort of seeing through it sort of, but like, so I know if my husband comes by or my dog, or if I have I can kind of cheat and if my TV is in front of me and I want to focus on that, I can sort of just space out on that for a while. So I actually didn't really use the blockers at all.
I don't like the blockers.
Okay, so they sound like are you giving a thumbs up for the working situation then? You think, yeah, this is something that people could work
Yes.
in.
Although I think they could still use some bug fixing on their software, both the PC and the mobile version, because there sometimes I would have connection errors, or it would just crash for no reason. But it didn't happen often enough, but enough to mention, if that makes sense.
It
So
does. Yeah.
so a couple bugs they've got to squash, maybe some extra features in the PC version. And again, I'm not sure if the mobile keyboard latencies because my phone's a little older now, or if it's the software. It's hard for me to tell. But productivity, like, I'm excited. Like, I'm starting to get on Team Jose here. You know,
Let's
it's like,
do
all
it.
right, I
Oh,
get
dude,
it.
I love my pair, and I wanted to mention, Adam, that cable is wild. There's some cards. I think anything with display link works without it. So if you have like a graphics card with a USB-C, it should have enough power to power these on. My laptop can power these on with the USB-C because it has a display out. So it all depends on the graphics card that you have. And another thing to mention too is the controls, they're open, right? So what you mentioned with the Nebula app is you can technically add those features to other apps, like the moving the screen around, adjust it. You can just use the Windows desktop. It's just the Nebula app does way deeper integrations.
I do wish there was just more, like,
Yeah.
especially like when it comes to gaming. So I did test these with
That's
games.
what that was my next question. Was like, okay, so we've heard work, and work sounds like it's pretty good. Yeah, with gaming. Like, the thing for me with gaming, just to lay that out first before you give us the lowdown, is if it's not easy, if it's not just plug in one cable to my Steam Deck and go, then I'm just not probably going to use it. So from that perspective, yeah, how did you find the gaming experience?
The hard part is it's different for each device. So I think I don't have a Steam Deck, but from what I've read, I think the Steam Deck should just be plug and play
Yes.
USB-C.
Yeah.
But for like the Switch, I had a lot of issues. I had to use my special cable, but then I wouldn't get sound for some reason, so I had to use Bluetooth earbuds with them. And you had to detach the Joy-Cons, and you have to. I cheated, and they're coming out with a hub of their own eventually, which is so that you can charge and use your glasses at the same time.
Yeah, but that's Nintendo. That's
Yeah.
I blame Nintendo. That's their copyright.
Exactly.
It's so messed up. That made me so angry with Nintendo as you're mentioning all this, because you shouldn't be needing all those cables. And
yeah, so but I use the same cable that I use for a PlayStation, or I assume also an Xbox. It really depends on the use case, but for PC, yeah, you could just plug and play if you're fine with, again, the basic capability of your display is then going to move with your head, and sometimes that makes people sick. I don't know how you feel about that, but if you use
So if you
the
got up
Nebula
out of your
software,
seat, your screens are following your head.
yeah, it's like stuck. No matter, you can't shake it loose. But
Okay.
but the Nebula software is super easy to download, super easy to use, and that gives you more customizability. And again, the screen stays anchored in place. But I mean, like, for PC gaming, I just found it maybe a little gimmicky. I would rather.
have you
just
tried
use
UEVR yet? Have you tried Steam VR?
No, I haven't,
That's
because I didn't have the.
You have to
cable.
try that. I think that's going to be like, we should try it before next podcast, because I want you to talk about that, because it's such and it sucks because it requires so much difficulty to set up. But once you get it set up, it really changes things, because we
next on my
talked
list.
about decoupling the camera to using flat to VR games. This is the perfect way. I feel like the X was accidentally the ultimate UEVR sit-down gaming device, because UEVR, all it's doing is decoupling the gyroscope and using that to control what you're seeing on the headset. So you can do that easily with these. These already have a built-in gyroscope. So Steam VR is only using the gyroscope functionality to move your head around.
So
All
Jose,
you're seeing, yeah.
Would they then take the place of a VR headset, essentially? Because you're not talking about flat gaming when you're saying UEVR. So you're sitting in the
it's
middle of the
VR
scene and you can look
specific.
around, and you're getting your I'm gonna call it postage stamp, but don't take any shade from that.
Yeah.
Into glasses though, and you're able to look around and you're like, wow, I'm in here. It's comfortable. I've got a very low impact pair of glasses on my head
Yep.
instead of a headset. Okay.
So now when you're moving your head around and you're playing flat VR games, you don't get that jitteriness because the screen is kind of not locked to where you're at. It's moving your head orientation.
Okay.
And they're lightweight enough so you can just play flat games for a long time.
That
Like that's
sounds
actually
good. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and this is the thing, like the sales pitch to me from a gaming perspective is sounding like, so as you know, before they killed it, as we talked about last episode, I was using my PSVR 2 as a 120 hertz monitor, loved it. But like what Adam said, it's fixed in one spot. You move your head. I mean, sorry, that's not quite correct. It would
Basic use
float.
case,
It would
yeah.
float until 3 seconds had passed, and then it would sit the flat
Yeah.
monitor in VR space, so you could move your head around and it would stay there. But in essence, it's just a TV in a virtual space that's
Yeah.
bigger and nicer than what you have. So what I'm looking for now is if I can get glasses on that are, again, low impact from my head and everything else, like it just feel comfortable. I could spend hours in them, but then plug them into a device I want to play with, whether that's a mobile phone game or say a Steam Deck game on just a bigger, more comfortable, more level screen with my eyes, instead of like, craning my head down, getting that whole thing going, because the Steam Deck's kind of heavy. Then I would probably buy something like this. But what I'm getting so far is it's a little bit RC if you want to use it in the 3DOF multi-desktop method for mobile. With work, it's okay, but the software need is the Achilles heel.
Yeah.
And then for gaming, it's a pain in the ass to connect it to things. Now, which one is the least pain in the ass to connect it to? Is Steam Deck work well?
Yeah. Yeah, Steam Deck is USB-C straight to the
Plug and
deck.
play.
Probably for something like the Steam Deck and Nintendo Switch, it might be beneficial because I mean, if you're like me and you never use it on the actual TV screen, it's nice to then see it big because like I never use the TV part of my Switch. It's always just
Yeah.
on the little handheld. So then I really liked it. Like when I had the Rokids, I really enjoyed Switch gaming specifically. But just like desktop gaming, I feel like I'd just rather use this in VR where I can have sort of a more. But maybe that's more of a personal preference. I don't want to see crap around me. I just want to be immersed. I want to have that virtual
Yeah.
desktop experience with the light behind me. Like so that for PC,
Right.
and then
Well,
I guess arguably maybe like normal TV, like PSVR or PlayStation and Xbox. I kind of maybe feel the same way about it.
I was there for years. Where I'm like, just immerse me. And that's why I became such a fan of virtual desktop, because you can go to the cinema, you can go sit in a cool like gaming den there's no clutter or anything. It's really nice. But more lately, and particularly with Helldivers, I've just been using my MetaQuest 3 and I've got this massive curved panel in front of me and I just game for hours. And it's like, it's incredible. But seeing my environment, being able to grab my water bottle, being able to say hi to my wife if she comes downstairs, like that to me now, I'm sold on it. Like
You can get that in the VR mode. That's what I'm trying to. I actually
Right.
sent I
Yeah.
sent on the group chat. I posted a quick video. I actually do have a little video example of it. I'm actually playing Dragon Ball Z here, and you can actually see the headset feed being decoupled into the glasses, and you can see me
I still
moving the
have to try
glasses
that.
around.
So I can't give any opinions on the Steam
Yeah.
use case because I haven't, but it
It's
was like
so
on my
good.
list, and I'm like, I gotta finish this script eventually. Like I just couldn't fit that
To
into
be
the- all the
honest, I
time
don't
spent
think
with it.
anyone. I looked online when I thought about this, and thinking if anybody has done a demo. I googled, nobody has, and I was like, some games work, some games didn't. Dragon Ball Z ended up working pretty much out the box with UEVR in this conversion, but
Oh.
it really makes it has changed me forever. Like I was already deeply impressed with this kind of injection mod of gaming, but taking it to the next level and being like, oh wait a minute, 3DOF gaming isn't the future of VR. It's the future of flat screen gaming,
Yeah.
right? And it's yeah.
And the
I
thing
can't
is,
talk about it for hours.
this video is exactly one of those things where I think a lot of people will look at a video of or watch a stream of someone playing a third-person perspective game, and they're like, doesn't that feel a little bit awkward? Like when you're watching that character, and this is what I imagine Returnal would be like in VR if we were in that environment. Same thing for Helldivers. If you're a third-person character, you're looking at your character, just like if you were playing GTA. This is why GTA 6 is a great idea to come to VR in that camera format. The problem is when it's fixed for you in that perspective, in that world, everything feels solid. When you see it on a video, it looks like there's like two variables changing at the same time,
Yeah.
and it's wholly unconvincing. You're like, it doesn't look appealing to me at all. But when you try it firsthand, and that's why I think that third-person games, things like Lucky's Tale, Edge of Nowhere, like those kinds of games, I don't think they did really well. It's the same thing if you look at any footage of, say, Max Mustard, which just released, right? Like you look at it and you're kind of like, it doesn't seem that compelling. But damn, when you're in it, it's like any of us who've played Astrobot. Astrobot and that world around you, and you got this cute little character, and you can see him running around, and even you can even run him around accurately, even when he's not in your vision, right? But it still feels real.
It really makes the difference. Like once you're in headset, that it's very hard to come across in flat footage because everyone's watching on a flat screen.
It allows imagination to kind of run. It has like you have almost like a wider gambit of getting immersed into the game because you're allowed I think about it like as the perspective of when you're a kid and you're playing with toys and you're looking at from the top down. You kind of get that into the game form, and I feel like it's very difficult to showcase it when you're doing content creation for it.
And that's exactly why Sea of Stars made massive, or to Rowdy's point, right? If I want to do some farming on a massive virtual screen, like if you haven't tried it yet, Rowdy, give it a shot. Even your Quest 2, if you still got it.
I do. Yeah, of course.
Like try, even in Quest 2 with its black and white pass-through, like try the mixed reality side of that, like with virtual desktops pass-through environment, and try throwing it up on a huge screen. Because the detail you get, it's sharp, it's colorful, and it's a comfortable way to play, and it trumps your monitor. It trumps the way that you probably were playing. Now, maybe it's a little bit effective with the headset on, but give it a shot. And I'm really curious to see, kind of, if you haven't tried that, give it a go. Because it's the same hole that Jose has fallen. He's the rabbit down the hole. Adam's falling down. I'm falling down. Like, it's strange how captivating that is, because for VR enthusiasts, it's like, it's not proper VR. I can see shit around me and stuff, but it's really weird how it feels real. It kind of feels like captivating. And you get to appreciate more art and what you see.
For me, I don't use the pass-through, but like I've started recently finally trying flat screen games in VR because of you freaking talking about it all the time.
Feels like a sin, I know. I know it feels like a sin.
But I'll actually do like the environments because I don't have a pretty maybe I'm just a messy person. I don't need to see that. And I really like the added effects, like the monitor can reflect the colors of the game behind it, like little things like that I'm like, how expensive it would be to do something like that in real life or to figure out how to configure that. I mean, it's probably easier now, but just stuff that I don't know. It's like I just want to play a game in a nicer place.
Yeah. And some of those digital tricks are really worthwhile. Like again, when I was playing, sorry, I said Helldivers so much this episode, but when I was playing Helldivers in a cinema with the glow of the screen reflecting on the walls and the chairs around me, like you said, right? I have that on my TV. I have one of those Govee TV light things that splashes the back wall with the color, and it works really well. But like you, I'm really picky about the latency, and there's like a tiny bit of latency. It's like, it's like 200-300 milliseconds. It's pretty quick. But it's a camera, it's a webcam looking at your TV to pick up the colors. It's not an API. It's not a digital, like as you're seeing the photon, so are they going out the back. It's a very slight delay. But when I'm in the virtual desktop environment, it is perfect. Bang on. The lighting is exact. It's color matched, all of that. And so, like you said, it's these things that you didn't know you wanted that now all of a sudden you need. That's what it is. So, yeah, thank you, Jose, for encouraging me to fall down that rabbit hole. I've really enjoyed it. And with that, Adam, I don't know if you're done with your spiel yet, but XReal Air 2, what's your position on it? How much do they cost? And do you recommend people buy them?
So these are $399. I might, if you need something now, I think they're great. But I think once the Pros and the Ultra, the Air 2 Pro and the Air 2 Ultra, once those are sort of cycled through developer hands and we get more developers making really nice custom AR apps for it, I think it's going to be even better. And I did miss like the hand tracking and the dimmer a little bit. So I'm like, I got the base versions, but that's okay. I can't complain too much. I think it's the start of something really good. So if you maybe travel a lot and you only have a laptop and you're tired of switching tabs trying to copy paste things from one to the other. These are going to be fantastic. Even with the PC Nebula app being in beta, like it works fine enough. It's going to hopefully have more improvements in the future. But yeah, mostly work purposes. I would recommend these for work purposes, and I'm excited to see, what if anything out of the other like AR glasses, because all the hardware seems kind of the same now. Other than these look nice and thin, it's really going to be the software end, I think, that's going to push these, one company above the other, and what custom stuff you're able to do with it. Because they all work the same. USB-C, plug it into your thing, you get a display. I mean, it's fine, but there's so much more custom stuff you could do with it, and the company that does the most with that, I think, is going to win when it comes to
I'm going to ask
AR.
you a tough question then, an A/B question. So,
Oh God.
Meta Wayfarers or XReal Air 2 for the same $400?
You
Yeah, I
can't compare
can.
them though.
Yeah.
They're different things. One's for
different
like
things.
AI and video taking, and one's AR displays. Like they're
Which one
not
do you
the
need
same.
which one do you need personally in your life more right now? If you had to pick one.
Ooh.
You can only have one boyfriend.
Well, okay, so I technically have monitors, so I guess I wouldn't need these versus the Meta glasses, which I love when I travel, and I don't really need to use my phone anymore. So I guess I would pick the Meta Smart glasses only because I have monitors that, yes, I could use. These are more if you want to enhance versus replace.
Well,
I guess
well,
you could replace. But
Had monitors, right? And I think one died.
well,
Right.
yeah. I did buy another one,
Over.
but I was like, do I really need to buy another one? And I'm like, nah, I feel like I still need a physical monitor just in
Yeah.
case, like it's
For things like color gamut and temperature, I don't think you'd get away with using those, however good the display is in there. I doubt versus a desktop in terms of color.
No, yeah.
Like
Color
if you were doing
accuracy.
Mhm.
color accuracy. One other question I forgot to ask earlier, as an audiophile, as someone who really appreciated the Meta Wayfarer's ability to do kind of like what felt like a spatial audio representation of my music, love that working. How are these with audio? Because I heard some complaints about, I'll call it cable crackle, like the connection to certain game consoles coming across on the audio. It's soundbar audio, right? That they have
Yeah,
on
it's in the glasses.
How are
I
they? How do you think
didn't
they're good?
have any issues with crackling at all, and I would have like music on most of the time, like lo-fi on while I was working most of the time. I would say they are very comparable to the MetaSmart glasses. So if you liked the audio quality in that, I mean, you like this. And I was also surprised at it's also very good at privacy sound. I don't know how to describe it, but like my husband couldn't hear my loud ass music in these unless he was pretty close. So you could
That's
probably use these.
That
on a
surprises a
22.
lot of
Inductive.
people actually, because they see this like open ear headband audio and they assume, oh, then my partner's going to hear it on the couch. When it's actually, unless you're really blaring it, you
Yeah.
can't, because it's directed. Now, that's great because I like to have music when I'm working without something having to be in my ears, right? Like it's either
Mhm.
speakers, which kind of disturbs other people, or that's why the meta frames are really cool. I'm glad those two for you are on par. That's a real important part for me is the audio side. So thank you for a really good deep dive into that. Any other questions before we wrap up this part?
I'm just shocked that you selected the Wayfarers over the XReals, but I agree, it's true. If you have a monitor, you wouldn't need them. But I think I'm really glad it doesn't have any cameras, because that's what I see these glasses as. I see them as a once again, future is boring, but I see these as the MacBook Air. It's just people haven't caught on to them yet. I really do see. I'm talking to a company called Nemo Core, and they're building a little puck that literally connects to the XReal, and it is the equivalent. You get the similar operating system as Nebula, but it's designed. It's a different operating system, but it is 100% meant to work with these. And I can just see like executive ladies with like a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, and then these glasses in their purse, and that's going to completely get rid of the MacBook Air.
God, that sounds like such a cool future, Jose. What you just specified. Initially, I was stuck on, okay, well, you just made Magic Leap 2, and I'm not excited. But then you took it to the purse level, and I was like, oh man, just having mobile computing in like a chic form factor. Fucking A, man. Bring that future tomorrow, please. That sounds cool. Very nice. All right. Well, with that, let's hand it over to Jose. Thank you very much, Adam. Lovely cross section on all of the questions we had. And Jose, our fortnight's sampling of releases.
All right. So first one that I have here for releases is Toy Monsters VR. It is a mixed reality tabletop tower defense game, and it is 100% inspired by Plants vs. Zombies. And there's that's quite honestly the reason why I picked that game. So it releases on April 11th, $14.99. And I believe they have a pre-order price of $12.99. That's about £12, 28 pounds for pre-order. And yeah, that's Toy Monsters VR, mixed reality, Plants vs. Zombies. It's one of those games. The reason I picked this specifically too is I forgot who it was. I think it was Bart, a really well recognizable developer in the VR space, and I saw him make a statement about and he said something about everybody's now trying all of the ideas that didn't work before in the past for VR.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself when I read that, like, that's a really good thing. And that's what we're going to start seeing is a lot of revisited ideas with a fresh polish, and I'm very excited about that. And yeah, that's a quick little game.
I love how they have like a freeze frame in the middle of the trailer.
Why did they not show? It's a mixed
Like
reality
what?
game, so why didn't they show mixed reality?
I
wonder.
don't know.
Like,
I wondered the same thing.
It's just like, is this filmed with a Quest 2? And
Still
when you
playing.
record, you get the black, or I guess when you disable the Guardian, you also get like black. So maybe they just didn't
It's
know
just
how
dark
to get around
black
that.
around.
I
don't
was
know.
going to mention that. Yeah, I think that I think in the description itself it says it supports mixed reality even on the Quest 2. So maybe they just didn't want to have a black and white room to show it. But yeah, that's Monsters
Cool. I love
VR.
Plants vs. Zombies. That was such
Yeah,
a
same
good. I
here.
mean,
I love
PopCap are an evil company. Evil. but I love their games. Unfortunately,
Yeah, same here. I'm a sucker for those basic mindless
Ugh.
games, as I like to call them.
hours go
Played
by.
on my iPod Touch. Good times.
Oh yeah.
I loved
And they
iPod
had
Touch.
first time I had a screen device. I was like, oh my god, I can play games on a little bit. Wow.
The iPod Touch was the first time you had a screen device. Sorry,
Yeah.
explain that. What do you mean by the screen device?
Well, I mean, because I had like a flip phone for forever. I was like one of the later adopters of those, so that was was it the iPod
Oh,
Touch?
geez.
So that was the first time I just had something that had apps.
Apps on it. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I used it as the cheap way to not buy an iPhone and yet have the full app ecosystem. Because I had looked at the like total cost of ownership for an iPhone, it was like $1,300 in the first year or something.
Oh, is that
And it was
too?
like $450 for an iPod Touch. So I was like, I'll take the iPod Touch, thanks very much. And I used it as my like laptop on the go for like 3-4 years. It was great.
Then you use Google
got
Voice
Wi-Fi.
services, and then you got a full working phone.
Losers who bought the iPhone. Anyway, all right, next one.
All right, next one is Soul Covenant. Set in the near future, desolate Japan. It's a VR tactical action game with a high level of immersion where the player will take on a battle for the fate of the world. So it's a very anime-esque action game. I love the art style of this. Definitely got me very curious. Reminds me of very Devil May Cry, Bayonetta. I'll let you guys see the trailer a little bit. But
I
yeah,
actually got to try this at GDC a little
Mhm.
bit, and it's interesting. Like you definitely fight against a lot of really big like enemies, and
Mhm.
actually the weapon mechanics are cool because if you hold it one way, it'll turn into just like a sword, but if you turn it like the other way, it like mechanics out into a scythe. And I was like, ugh, so I just kept flipping the weapon around just to watch it turn into a scythe.
That's cool.
But it like, I don't know, it kind of suffered from like what a lot of these sort of like Asian style like the voice acting was very flat. Like I don't know if maybe they just didn't hire native English speakers, but it just came across as like I don't know. So supposedly the game's supposed to be very emotional, but I don't know if I could get over the voice acting.
Emotional.
I was like, emotional is not an adjective I usually hear tied to.
That's what
But
he said. He said that's a very like he said I don't know the end. I didn't play that much of it, but he said he cried at the end, and it's like a very
Wow.
so
Oh, wow.
supposedly there's some kind of big
All right.
emotional thing with AI.
With the sword all
people.
along.
I think I cried to like Before Your Eyes. That fucking crushed my soul. But there aren't that many VR titles that bring me to tears. So
I don't think I've been brought to tears yet in the VR game.
Yeah.
Now that I think
Yeah.
about it, hopefully it happens soon.
Let's bring in a couple more horror games, Jose.
There we go. But yeah, that's Soul Covenant, PC VR, PSVR, MetaQuest. It is also cross-platform. It is a full priced, I guess we will call this a VR game. It's $39.99 US,
Yep.
$35.99 pre-order, and that's about £31 and 28 for pre-order. £28 for pre-order. Yeah, and the last one I wanted to mention, because it's a big one, is the Humble Bundle. So Humble Bundle is back for $20 for 9 games. I believe the games are from top here is Seventh Guest from Wanadev, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is a haunted house, I guess, adventure game. Is that correct to say?
It is like the best room escape / puzzle game I think that we've had in VR. Period. It's so good.
Next was Vertigo, but yeah, it's
Vertigo.
really good.
Oh yeah,
like,
it was Vertigo. Yeah.
I liked it too, and I'm not even a puzzle person.
Oh,
I'm
so
terrible
good.
at them.
I'm not finished yet. I'm halfway through it. It's a long game.
I just appreciate that it's very forgiving. So if you're like stuck, you can you collect those like coins or something that you can use to unlock the puzzle solvers. So it's just like
What was
I don't know
what the
what
coins
to
are
do.
for? I
Yeah.
never figured out what the coins were for. I've always just brute forced my way through the puzzles.
Well, you do you know.
You do your best.
I've paid for credits to get out of a room escape game in a Oculus Go yacht game where the audience was so frustrated they donated to give me dollars so I could.
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyway, yeah, good
Oh
time.
yeah, that's Seventh Guest. Next in the list is Firmament. Firmament is a puzzle game I have never played. Have you guys played it?
Sim.
Played
Yeah.
it. It is.
Familiar?
Rowdy saw me fall apart, I think, in that.
Multiple times.
There are multiple puzzles in that. Like any Myst game, right, by the Cyan devs, are maddening. Now, I was playing off PC VR. Honestly, wasn't running great. Now, I've not got a super card, but I don't think it was my rig necessarily. I don't think it's very optimized for VR. It's still a really cool experience, but expect like Myst VR, which was a recreation of the original Myst game, and it felt a little clunky. That's the same, I'd say, with Firmament. Firmament has places where you're like, okay, this doesn't feel like it was designed for VR necessarily. And there's one particular puzzle, I nearly just like, I don't know, my brain nearly fell apart.
I think that's when I tuned in.
It was like I'll call them flower beds, but they were like they were like trains in 3D space that you had to organize. Oh my god, it was like a garden. The whole thing was nightmare. But anyway, if you like destroying your brain with puzzles, then Firmament is for you. If you're a normie, then
Just go watch Zim's stream on it because you
Just
have a
watch the
good
stream.
laugh.
Purchase it and watch the stream. It'll count as playing it.
it hurt.
Worth
It hurt me. I
It's
have
like a
gas.
comedy.
So, and third one on the list is Another Fisherman's Tale.
So good. Wow, that's
Another
very
puzzle game. If you anyone want to describe it.
I would describe it as if you remember like old school arcade machines where you control a mechanized robot or something with a joystick. You do that as a bearded sea captain with like this crab, and you like it's very, very unique, intelligent game design with beautiful voice acting. I think it's a wonderful experience. I liked the first one.
Yeah. I think the thing
You
that,
get both
that
of
makes
them
it so
on
special.
this bundle. So
I
you
think
get
that
Another Fisherman's Tale.
Okay, you get both. Yeah.
I think what makes it so special is how they play with scale, right? That's the main thing there. They
So
play around
Fisherman's Yeah, Fisherman's Tale, the first one had more scale plays.
Yeah.
The second game is more game design.
Yeah.
Like there's unique game design elements that you're not expecting. You're like, wow, that's really smart. And it's not just smart, it's really fun to play. I still remember Rowdy and I in person in their studio playing a nice arcade room escape game, and it was fantastic because Rowdy was massive and I was the tiny mouse or whatever, and it was loads of fun.
Just like a real life, yeah.
yeah.
Some things never change. But yeah, fifth one in the list is After the Fall, the deluxe edition. So it looks like this one has all the DLC, all of the maps, all the customizations. After the Fall, I guess best described as Left 4 Dead, but for VR. I think nobody will argue against that.
Oh, amazing game. Yeah.
Yeah, 4-player co-op game, shoot zombies. So that's on the list. Six on the list, No More Rainbows, a parkour 3D platformer. Oh, you're making faces with that one, Zim. What?
That's Gorilla Tag for adults is what I would call it.
Ooh.
It's if you
Triple
hate
X
cute
edition.
things and you want to fuck them up, then you do that as a gorilla and you rip little cute things apart and it's still Gorilla
Yeah.
Tag mechanics, but it's like for anyone who's ever seen there's a term on the web, I think this is like puking rainbows or something like that. Like it's that kind of a universe, very colorful, very gleeful, but you get to be the demon and rip it to shreds. And it's kind of Super Mario-esque in that you're platforming, but it's got this nice it's got the nice energetic Gorilla Tag mechanic
I
within
love
it.
that.
Yeah,
And
this is a
funny
lot
enough,
of games
the
for 20
description of
bucks.
the game is like playing Super Mario in VR, but as Bowser instead.
That's a great description. Yeah, that's exactly
Nice.
it. Exactly.
Yep, so that's No More Rainbows. And next on the list, a VR favorite, Arizona Sunshine, the deluxe edition. So that
Ooh.
includes the Dead Man and the damn DLC.
First one.
The
The
first,
first
one,
one. First one was great. I really
It's
like the first one.
nostalgic.
It's a bit
Yes.
older now, but you can still co-op it, which is great. So, for 20 bucks, you've got two really solid Vertigo games here
With
between after the fall.
45% off discount for Arizona Sunshine too. So it kind of gives you a
Oh,
leadway in there.
like
So
a coupon, is it?
yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So you get Arizona Sunshine 1 Deluxe Edition with a coupon for 2. And that's for the Deluxe Edition of Arizona Sunshine 2. So that's the higher tier model version, sorry. And then next on the list, we got Broken Edge, the 1v1 sword fighter fantasy sword fighting game. Have you guys played Broken Edge?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
No, I think that launched last year, if
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken. And then there was a game that was very, very similar called Iron Lights. By
Yeah.
developer E. McNeil,
Right.
which I really had a lot of fun with my wife. And then this game came out a few years later. I'm like, basically the same game, but I haven't played Broken. I think for me, those 1v1s, they're very circumstantial. So for me in this pack, in Humble Bundle, there's always some throwaways. I'd probably put it down as a throwaway for me. I wouldn't end up playing it.
Yeah, I feel like it's good, but it's just too stressful. 1v1s are just too stressful for me. I'm just like, I
Yeah.
give up before I even start. But
You'll
it's
do it
it's kind of
once, right?
like Blast On, but medieval-y.
Yeah.
You know.
And Blast On's free now, right? So they went free to play. So that's a good
Do
one.
we know who's the best Broken Age player?
Player
here?
or
Actually,
like
me.
the-
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I actually happen to own the record now. But yeah, that's the Virtual Realities Mystery and Mayhem Humble Bundle. So those 9 games for 20 bucks. That's Seventh Guest VR, Firmament, Another Fisherman's Tale, After the Fall, the Deluxe Edition, No More Rainbows, Arizona Sunshine Deluxe Edition, Broken Edge, a discount code for Arizona Sunshine 2, and the sequel to A Fisherman's Tale. So all there for 20 bucks.
Love it. I love a good Humble Bundle, especially
Yes.
a VR one or a soundtrack bundle or something like that. But I'll tell you one thing though, I still think that Humble Bundle needs to take a page out of Alphabet and Google and get a little bit more simple in their offering because they've got at any time now they've got like 8 or 15 different bundles all going at the same time. Like gone are the days of having just a simple single very well curated single bundle, and now it's just like a mess. It's like a light edition on top of a storefront now. They're dissolving in my opinion, and I'd like to see them return back to that original strength.
Yeah,
That's
that's releases.
There was another title you sent to me, Jose.
Yeah, I actually mentioned that one last podcast.
Oh, okay.
I just
Right.
I was like, wait a minute, this one looked a little bit too familiar.
Okay.
Say anything, Rowdy. Cut it now. All right. Well, thank you, Jose, for covering us and keeping us up to date with the latest, particularly when we've got good deals out there. I know there's a lot that's like, even on the PlayStation Store, right? They've got like No Man's Sky half off. And so if you're looking to jump into a game, there's plenty out there for you. With that, chat, thanks for joining us for the live show. If there's any last shouts, we'll take them in chat while I read off these show times. So this is a fortnightly podcast. FReality is broadcast every other Saturday, both on YouTube and Twitch. Love to both platforms. We go live 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. in the UK. We're scattered across North America, the four of us, and get together on a fortnightly basis to talk to you about VR and everything in its periphery. We have an audio podcast that goes up on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify just a couple days after the live broadcast. And for those of you itching for timestamps, Jose does a nice job shortly after the podcast goes to get those out on the web the same day. So with that, anything else on... what do we see here? Crash is saying 10 minutes ago?
Neutral testimonial. It appears we are able to help improve productivity of, doing taxes during the podcast. And I don't know if this is good or not, but we may manage to successfully get someone to cancel their Humble Bundle subscription.
Oh, wait,
Right.
that was the complete
We'll send the
opposite
invoice
of our
over.
goal here.
So
That's
yeah.
wonderful. Well,
You can get a lot
very
done
good.
during our long show, including taxes. Yeah,
I
a
wish I
great
didn't do that.
background.
That's
I'm gonna do my
friend.
my
taxes now
weekend.
too.
My weekend ahead is fucking tax. Jesus. I miss being a kid. We have to worry about that stuff, but all good, all good. So hopefully we'll make you feel like a kid next time we get back together on the next FReality. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye for now.